Welcome back to another episode of the Meat Mafia podcast. If this is your first time joining us, we have one goal and one goal only, and that is that you, yes you, listen to this podcast and get at least one valuable piece of information that inspires you to go radically change your health today. If this is your second, third, fourth, or 100th time listening to the Meat Mafia podcast, we are so grateful to have you, and we are so thankful for your continued support. Before we get going, if you would not mind going and following us on all of our platforms, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and of course Twitter, we would greatly appreciate it. This just allows us to expand our reach, and your reviews, comments, and feedback give us more and more things to think about and improve the show with. Lastly, this is a user-supported podcast and newsletter, and we would not be able to do what we love doing without your generous support and the support from our sponsors. We take great pride in the relationships that we've built with our sponsors and truly believe that they are the best resources out there for better health. Your support and their support, and you supporting them, means the world to us. If you are enjoying the podcast and getting value out of it, please check us out on the Fountain app below, where you can support us by streaming us sats or sending us support via our Fountain Bitcoin wallet. Without further ado, here is a word from our sponsors. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the Carnivore Bar. The Carnivore Bar is a veteran-owned, animal-based company focused on bringing you the highest quality pemmican product on the market. Pemmican is an ancient tradition practiced by American indigenous cultures, and it's focused on simple ingredients: beef, tallow, and salt. It's built for grab-and-go snacking, and it's a great sort of travel, hiking, or school lunch snack. And it's really built for those long-lasting days where you can just run on basically no fuel other than just simple fats. It's rich in saturated fats and provides everything you need to sustain long-lasting energy throughout the busy day. In my opinion, this is a product that is an absolute must, so go check it out in the link below. Also, check out our podcast with the founder, Philip Meese. He does an incredible job breaking down the mission and the passion behind the company. And I think if you're interested in animal-based nutrition, Philip will inspire you with his product. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Holy Cow Beef. Holy Cow Beef is regeneratively raised, grass-fed, grass-finished beef raised right here in Lubbock, Texas. Regeneratively raised, grass-fed, grass-finished beef is the gold standard of beef, and Ann and Weldon Warren have made it their lives' mission to provide incredibly high-quality beef to their local community and beyond. They have been raising their animals this way for decades. In fact, they were some of the most influential voices for getting grass-fed and grass-finished beef in Whole Foods back when Whole Foods was a startup grocery store. They were influential in setting the AGA standards, which is the American Grass-Fed Association, so you know they are doing things the right way, and on top of all of that, their beef tastes like butter. Grass-fed, grass-finished beef provides a superior omega-3 to omega-6 ratio than your typical beef, or in other words, it causes less inflammation in your body. So you are promoting a high-protein, high-fat diet with this amazingly high-quality beef, and saturated fats are playing their critical role in benefiting your body through supporting hormonal functions and cellular functions. And if you're looking for the highest quality beef, look no further than Holy Cow Beef. Leave your butcher box, that Australian and New Zealand raised meat, in the cart and order from your friends Ann and Weldon Warren over at Holy Cow Beef. I almost forgot the most important part there. Ann and Weldon Warren also accept Bitcoin as payment, so go check them out at their website in the link below, and you can pay in Bitcoin or in cash if you're looking to save your Bitcoin. I don't know about you all, but I am all about rewriting the incentives when it comes to healthcare, and Crowd Health is doing just that. Crowd Health is essentially crowdfunding for healthcare with a small HSA component mixed in. Paying through the nose for health insurance you may never use, only to be turned away when you actually need it, is incredibly frustrating. Also, the exorbitant costs of health insurance has so many baked-in premiums that when you compare settling your doctor's bills by paying in cash versus using insurance, the cost is astronomical. So crowdfunding allows you to settle your medical bills in cash and then get the funding you need from your group through Crowd Health. This is a great alternative to health insurance for people who are low risk, healthy people who just want peace of mind knowing that if anything actually did happen, they do have a pool of funds to pull from to cover their medical costs. The best part? My group is saving a portion of the monthly opt-in in Bitcoin, and the rest is in cash. So those savings are going towards actually preserving long-term value for my group through a vehicle like Bitcoin. We are really excited about this concept, and since the business model is predicated on an incentive-based healthcare, it is a great concept. For people with low risk, minimal healthcare costs, it is a no-brainer. Go check them out in the link below and use our promo code MAFIA for a discount on your first 6 months with Crowd Health.
What?
Well, thanks for having us out to your place. This is great.
Oh, it's good to have you guys here.
Yeah.
Whenever you have Mafia in your name, you're welcome in our house.
Yeah.
You immediately knew that we were good people. You saw the Mafia on the Twitter.
Well, you also come highly recommended from people I respect. Charles, of course.
Yes.
Slim. And of course we met at the Beef Initiative.
Yeah,
absolutely.
In Bluffton. So yeah, and Jersey boys. Even though I was import, but still I was there long enough to get the vibe of that.
Yeah, North Jersey, immediate seal of approval for sure.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But also don't forget, Tom's River, those guys.
Oh, yeah.
There's some good guys there too.
And you mentioned Charles, and we probably shouldn't say this openly, but we'll say it. He actually sent us here to do a little recon mission because he has this idea of doing a gather and lather for Pharaoh Skincare.
A gather and lather?
That's what he's calling it.
I saw you guys tweeting about that. What exactly is a gather and lather? It sounds kind of pornographic.
So we're gonna have to give Charles full credit for it. So if we do
Charles
get in trouble,
Mayfield, Pharaoh.life. Say.
Best animal-based skincare around.
The dog loves licking our face. It's crazy.
It's incredible.
It's just like, you taste tasty, Daddy.
the smell on it is actually I really enjoy it. I think it's incredible.
He sent me the non-scented one for my neck. So this is I'm trying to start a movement now so men don't have to have that crepe neck when they get older, so Dvorak has his pot, but he hasn't started using it yet. I'm seeing results.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think about all the money you spend on different types of skin creams and products over the years that are just loaded with chemicals, and then lard tallow.
I listened to that one, the one podcast Slim did with Charles, and Charles was talking about there's only 7 real regulations in skincare products, and the only thing you have to really watch out for is red dye, and everything else whatever. Just smear it on your face, no problem.
Well, the one that's crazy is like sunscreen. It's like there's all these oxybenzone.
And then you hear the promotion of people saying you got to use sunscreen and you get skin cancer. I mean, it's almost like they're paid. To use this horrible product.
Yes.
It's like what a weird world we're in. Once we have a little bit of knowledge and we collectively start to share that and understand. I didn't know crap about beef or lard. I'm going to put lard on my face.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it didn't take me 2 seconds ago. Of course, that sounds totally logical.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your wife is a huge fan of it too, right?
She is now, he should start like a Avon Ladies or something, man. Or
He should.
What was the other one where you could win a pink Cadillac? What was that? It was the something ladies. It was also like a at home. I'm kicking myself. Tina will know. But you could get higher up in rankings the higher you were in sales. And the ultimate was you got a pink Cadillac, and then you see in the airport. I still see them sometimes. A little bit older ladies, and they have. They're completely decked out in pink with badges and awards and stuff. And they got pink Cadillacs. I'll show you the picture. And that's all because they excelled in this one program.
It's like the affiliate marketing program or whatever for those products.
Yeah, the predecessor to it, absolutely, but not really an MLM per se. Really a sales force. I mean, Avon was never an MLM. They're actually my client at one point. It was a real sales force. It was a real cult. It was a family. I'm kicking myself. It's like Betty.
It'll come to you.
Yeah, it will come to me.
When Tina comes back, she'll probably know.
She'll know right away. Yeah.
We've got to convince Charles to get on radio because his voice is that silky, or do some sort of commercial where he's like the center of it.
Maybe that will be the point of the gather and lather.
I promised him two things. I at the beef initiative, I think I did it publicly. You know, it's like we'll get this rolling. We'll get people interested in the product, which I think he's now seeing some results of that. That's Tina mainly.
Yeah,
Tina's like, you know, really pimping it out to get that caddy. And I said, man, we can get you a wife too. I'm sure. Look, I'm a 3-timer. This is my forever wife. We can do that for you. And he's a handsome man. And you pair him with that voice. But now I got to like direct him. Like, dude, you got to back off the camera. The women can't see your hair. Yeah. You know, back it off a little bit. Don't want that Pinocchio nose that the camera's all distorting it and stuff. Come on, Charles.
Yeah, so anyone listening, call 1-800-MAFIA and mention Charles Mayfield's name. We'll know what you're talking about.
Yeah. We'll get it done. We'll get it done.
But he's a great guy, and he's a huge reason why we're even sitting here, because we had wanted to meet you. We got to briefly introduce ourselves to you, and we also have a great mutual friend, Texas Slim, who you've been doing some stuff with. But one of the things that Harry and I talk a lot about is just the connections in this space are unbelievable, and it seems like that's something that you and Tina have experienced as well, right?
Oh, totally. Now, I'm kind of like that already because of just the vastness of No Agenda Nation and all the people all around the world really who listen. And, you know, I'm pretty good. I have a pretty good system with emails, so I'm good at, you know, replying or staying in touch with people. I remember certain people, their stories. I've been around for, you know, 10, 15 years. You get some pretty strong bonds. And it was really the No Agenda meetups where you really realize the impact that this community has on itself. It seems like we may be doing it, but it's a very two-way street. I don't know anything about nothing. Yeah. Except for what people tell me, and when they're professionals, I tend to believe them. You know, and it's often counter to what some official narrative may be. No matter what it's amazing what kind of people listen. My vision always used to be a bunch of teenagers just looking to get laid on Friday night. Let's listen to the Jams Curry's playing, you know, and that was pretty much true. But that progressed later, and now it's doctors and lawyers and politicians and students, retirees, military, law enforcement, teachers. There's such a gamut, and specialized in each individual field. And they all feel comfortable enough to, you know, to share with me their knowledge, which at some points, you know, can be life altering for people who get that knowledge. So for that to be open to that type of communication, I think is where that comes from. And it just kind of flows. I've learned a lot. We're really chasing the wrong things in media. It doesn't matter who's biggest, who's first, who's the top of the bill. There's always going to be someone, and that someone always matters. But, you know, to get 1 million people who are consistently engaged in No Agenda on an ongoing basis, you know, you can really create a network out of that, you know, just by stepping in. And so when that network hit Marty Bent, then that hit Texas Slim, or, you know, because Marty introduced us, then it just made so much sense. You know, then it's like, oh, here's another person coming into my life. Had Slim out to the house. It's great here because, you know, we're no longer in a city. So when someone come by, it's like, oh, they're bringing gifts. Thank you very much for the raw milk and for the beef.
Had to do it.
Absolutely.
Very nice. And the tallow. You know, it's like travelers bring stories. So we got a guest suite upstairs, you know, so someone can stay here. And Slim really laid the smack on me, man. It was good. I'm like, holy crap, there's this guy. He's really trying to do the same thing I'm doing, except he's trying to keep people alive with food, and I'm trying to keep them communicating. Well, we kind of need each other.
Yes.
And as you go further, you see there's people doing this with healthcare, is it Crowd Health?
Yeah, Crowd Health.
Crowd Health, which I'm also very interested in. You know, these types of parallel networks is now what I'm all about, because we can't fix the established system. It's going to implode, or, you know, it will improve. But in the meantime, we just have to have a parallel network running that you know, that we can function and live joyously and harmoniously through. I think, you know, that's possible.
Can you describe what you mean by parallel network? Is it like the decentralization theme that makes it parallel?
Yeah, it has to perform the same function, but I think mainly because Bitcoin is involved pretty quickly in all these things, you bypass a lot of the bullshit, mainly control. Oh, there she is. There's. Should we take one quick break? Just
let's
do
hi?
it. Yep.
And we're back.
We're back. So we were talking about some of these different nodes that you had been exposed to through the No Agenda fan base and community.
Yeah.
So prior to you getting connected with Slim, were you already in the weeds and thinking about food intelligence and the decentralization of food before that?
No, I was thinking about millennials. That's really where my head was at. And that was kind of the thing that when Dave Jones and I started Podcasting 2.0 and the podcastindex.org, which is really the immutable index, so you can't get deplatformed with your podcast, since we now have over 60 apps and services using it, and it's completely open, replicable. It's distributed. I realized, particularly on the value for value payment side, that I was working with a lot of men your age. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. Two things, actually. One is a lot of men your age, also a lot of Christians, which is another thing.
Interesting.
Kind of a journey that I went off on, and I'm currently on with Tina, with my wife. But the story that I consistently heard, and I was just watching a documentary which kind of follows on to that, is my daughter is 30. She just turned 32, so she's from 1990. So basically, just hanging on to millennialdom, but she's in there.
Good decade.
And of course, I follow her very closely and her friends, and through the lockdowns, and the Netherlands where she lives was pretty severe. They had a curfew, which was the first time since World War II, which sociologically was very shocking to a lot of people. Because they still have grandparents who lived through World War II. So that was troublesome. But I realized here's a generation born in the 90s during the first Gulf War. I remember Christina sitting there, in her little thing, rocking back and forth, watching Shock and Awe, and Shock and Awe version 1, green screen CNN, and so then things kind of bubbled along until you're 10, 12 years old. Then we get 9/11. Which shocked everybody and made things very not understandable. And then a lot of confusion, anthrax, yellow cake, aluminum tubes, what is all, then we invaded the wrong country, and there's political strife, and there's all kinds of issues. Don't worry about it, I'm going to fix it. It's all going to be okay. You're safe. And then, just do your thing, go to school, you got to go to college. And then we get the financial crisis, and you see, people going broke, and your parents going through hard times, and then you come out of school and you got 50, 100 grand in debt, and it's fuck all to do. And you could take a $12 an hour job, and there's the gig economy, and like, holy shit, they got shafted. And I was just watching this documentary about the student loans, and like, that's really the problem with everything. The enslavement starts so early, and no wonder medical professionals who are $500,000, $750,000 in debt, no wonder they'll do whatever they're told.
You have to think that way,
because you can't pay off the debt if you lose your resident, if you lose your practice or your spot in line or whatever, and you get a black mark. I mean, no wonder this has happened. So there's a lot of problems, and here are this group of mainly men, but women as well, who have opted out and saying, no, we're setting up a parallel with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So then comes Slim. And so now I'm already seeing Bitcoins like this, especially with the Lightning Network. I'm like, oh man, I know value for value works. I've done that for 15 years. I know you can make a really sustainable living on this, because two people in their families do okay with the No Agenda show. We provide value. That's a balanced system. And so now we can do it in a digital fashion, and it just happens to be Bitcoin with the Lightning Network, which I'd also started to reinvestigate. So now I'm starting to get back into Bitcoin and the core values, key word, the core values, right, and proof of work, and really how the monetary system works. You're kind of forced into it when you see a repetition of 2008, 2009. We're seeing the same things happening. So that was really encouraging to me. And then for Slim to say, hey, I'm going to take advantage of the Bitcoin community the way you take advantage of the No Agenda, advantage is the wrong word, but how you integrate with the No Agenda community, and I can get these two parties, ranchers, farmers, and end consumers, talking to each other, coming to a common language, which would be Bitcoin. And so, and that's just like Tina and I were talking the other night about Ye's latest rants, about the Jewish media. And I'm like, we have so many groups of types of things, the Texas oil people, the Dutch natural gas. You can come up with all kinds of names for different groups who may or may not be dominant in a field, but Bitcoiners, that's that's a splash of all over the world now. And these are people who, if they really understand Bitcoin, which I think most do, who are really, hodling, etc., or just interested buying something, we already understand each other's values. And so you can build all these different side things with the knowledge that it can't be taken down because of Bitcoin. Because they can take everything else down. Everything can go down. Once they take away the money, nothing for you truckers, nothing for you podcasters, nothing for you YouTubers. They just pull it all out.
But we even saw it this week with like Kanye West getting his, his banking with JP Morgan
Chase
got frozen.
Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't freeze it, but they just said, take your money out by the end of the month. We're not going to do business with you.
Yeah.
Which, that's a pain in the ass, man. Change your bank account.
Oh my gosh.
Holy shit. Just do that yourself. I mean, I pulled out of Chase. We're not entirely out. There's still some reasons, we like to have one other credit card that's just there. But otherwise, we just pulled everything out and put it in a community bank and Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It was hard to change, all of our information, just get it all set up and all the things. You have automatic payments and man, it's going to be so much easier if I just control the wallet.
What's going on, guys? Before we get back to the show, I have a quick message from one of our sponsors. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Wrich Ranches. Jason Wrich is the owner of Wrich Ranches, and he is passionate about raising his cattle in a regenerative way. He raises his cattle all on grass, and it is grass-fed, grass-finished to the day that they show up to the butcher. He also services his local community, so if you are in the Colorado area looking for great grass-fed, grass-finished beef, look no further than Jason Wrich. He also accepts Bitcoin, so if you're a Bitcoiner in Colorado, there's no one else you need to look for. Jason's your guy.
Yeah.
100%.
It would make my life easier. One place to do it all. We'll get there. We'll get there. Maybe quicker than we know.
Keep trusting the process. But we were experiencing that with PayPal too, because we were working with a few companies that sent us our first invoices on PayPal a few months ago.
Yeah.
And they just have a company policy for your first couple checks. They just hold your money for 21 days.
PayPal does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're like, why do they do that?
Yeah. Now, to be clear, No Agenda has had a very good relationship with PayPal for a long time. We have an account manager if there's ever anything wrong, but I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
We've always we prefer checks, bank transfers, gold coins, cash, anything. And actually, now there's some intermediate bridges that will make Bitcoin possible for us as well without possible repercussions from IRS, or just not that the IRS has repercussions, but I've been audited so many times. I'd just like to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah,
it's already a very poorly understood business. We did work with the IRS, so they understand. Could just have an LLC. It's two partners, 50-50. But the banking system also had to get used to us showing up with checks and cash, and like, what kind of business are you running here? What kind of drugs are you selling?
Yes.
So we just try not to trip any wires. But now, no matter what the intent was or wasn't from PayPal, they're very sorry about it, because they're offering people, I've seen $8, $15, all kinds of money to come back and sign back up with them. But that was why this is exactly why I started podcastindex.org with Dave, is because Apple started to take stuff off of their index. I'm like, well, they're going to fuck with it now? Okay, so now we have to have an alternative, just to make sure, because Apple had the dominant position, Spotify number 2, but all the apps all use Apple's database. So once they take it out of Apple, it disappears from Overcast, it disappears from all these other places. So we want that to be up to the listener, the audience, and ultimately the app developer. If the app developer doesn't want that, fine, but it can't be you determining that for every other app developer.
Yeah. Was there a particular event or period in history that you think about in terms of podcasting, maybe where you're saying to yourself, podcasting is getting away from the initial intention when we created this thing back in 2004, 2005?
Well, I wouldn't be as arrogant to say that we created something that had an intent content-wise. Mm-hmm. For me, I just wanted to have a way to the first time I used the internet, and a buddy of mine in San Francisco live streamed a song to me in New Jersey over a 56K frame relay connection. I was hooked, and I was like, there were things called the M-Bone. You've never heard of that. This was it was like a multimedia backbone. You could hook up all these, big Sun Microsystems workstations together, and you could actually broadcast pretty high quality video all over the net. But it was, you could only really get universities to participate. And so I was always just looking for, how do we do this? And of course, the fallacy of the beauty of the internet is the distribution can go anywhere, anyone can do it. But with it broke, this is why I knew advertising wouldn't really work, because it broke the model. The model was one signal broadcast, so every additional listener is just additional revenue. With internet, every additional stream is additional cost. Now you got to go monetize that cost back plus your profit. This is the problem. This is why Spotify is not profitable, because in addition to, and they really have not been profitable, in addition to paying for the stream that goes to people listening to the song, which that's just a cost. It just costs money. It's electricity, it's cycles, it's bandwidth. There's real cost to it, certainly at scale. Then they have the rights, which has to, is determined by law in some cases, and then by secret handshake deals involving stock with record labels. It's a mess. So I knew that wasn't going to work very well. But this system, where you can stagger it, we can delay it, we can distribute your actual source files from, and you can control that all through your RSS feed. I knew that was groundbreaking, but it was at the time really only solving the actual issue, which was bandwidth. It took too long to download anything. So waiting around for something, like click and wait, it's like, no. And we didn't have phones or any kind of devices. Right. And so like, what if we had this system where your computer, and now we have cable modems, so now your computer is always on. This is 2000, I'd say. Because I just arrived in Amsterdam. Amsterdam had cable modems. And it appeared to me that if I could just have this computer checking to see, is there a new thing, a new episode or a new chapter or whatever it is, then recognize that because I have a subscription to it, I want it, and then download it, and then notify me, oh, there's something new, because then I'll click on it and boom, it'll play. Oh, that'll be magic. It'll be time shifting that you don't know about. And so that worked really well with RSS, which the first Dave Weiner, which he had already created and implemented. And so once I convinced him of this and he put that in place, it all worked. It was working for 2 or 3 years, and it had no application until I saw the iPod. And then I went, oh, crap, this is a radio receiver. This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, it just looked, I had a Sony portable AM transistor radio that my grandmother gave me, which looked very similar to the first iPod, with a handsome leatherette case, 9-volt battery. And, I'd go to sleep when I was 7 years old with that thing underneath the pillow. So just, it all clicked together. It all made sense. So then I started the Daily Source Code. That podcast, it was very specific. It was something that never get on the air. In fact, it reminded me a little bit, it was really for the developers. So I had created this little script. Some people had helped me. Kevin, now at Google. And so this Apple script then would, do the checking of a feed, update the iPod. You could pick it up in the morning, and you would have the latest episode on it. And I started to do the Daily Source Code, which was really meant for developers who were creating these different apps. Because if you remember at the time, maybe you don't, we only had iTunes. iTunes would download it, and then it would sync it to your iPod. That was a couple of years later, but that was the system that I developed with RSS from Weiner. So my show was specifically about that development, and I'd talk about what the new features and guys had put in there, and it was just and then they would send me sound clips of them talking, and it was just kind of this feedback loop, which made the podcast really fun to listen to if you're in this loop. reminded me of the BBC, who had their own computer at one point, the BBC computer, and they would distribute programs over the air. So the way you loaded those programs or shared them was on cassette tape. And if you listen to that cassette tape, you just hear like a modem, all these sounds. The BBC would broadcast 3 minutes of a basic program on the air for 3 minutes. You record that on your cassette recorder, pop it into your cassette on your BBC computer, and the program would magically appear.
Really?
So, and I thought that was fantastic for the people who gave a shit about it.
Right.
So it was that idea of this feedback loop with you, because I'm not a software engineer, but I can certainly understand stuff and talk about it and create that feedback loop. So then I think what I did by doing that subconsciously or not intentionally was say, you can do whatever the fuck you want here. You can do any kind of format, and there's no right or wrong. And freedom of speech wasn't even a topic. What didn't even come up in my mind that, oh, this is great for... No, I did know that I could put together a great show, not get paid for it, but also not have the program director or the music director or the CEO or anyone bitching at me or hotlining me, telling me what I'd said wrong. That was very appealing. The money side was not even that interesting to me. In fact, I spent most of my early days trying to figure out how we could get a music license appropriate to podcasting so we could actually play music and promote it, because playing music is also promotion of that music.
Right.
It never, to this day, no one has done that. No one has got a music license that will allow you to create a podcast downloadable that includes licensed music from ASCAP BM. There, you can get independent licenses, but you can't get a Yay record. You can't play something like that. So that's what and also I spent a lot of my time on the technology. How can I get studios smaller? How can I make it easier for people to start? What kind of can we do it all on a computer? Do we need hardware? I've by default, because the answer was no, you can't do it in real time with real time processing unless it's in hardware. That's why most podcasts are today, still recorded, then post-produced and edited, which I just find a waste of time. I love doing it all in one go. I don't care about the ums and the ahs. We can always cut something out. Yeah. But as long as I have the sound and everything's all rocking, then you get into the vibe. You hear what it's going to sound like on the air.
You feel like you're in the room.
Exactly. And in the zone. And so I start, finish, and I can tighten stuff up for whatever you want. But anyway, so that wasn't really possible unless you had outside gear. So I spent a lot of focus on that, built several versions of what I called the Podcaster Pro. And finally a company did it, which is Rode, with the Rodecaster Pro. They did number 2. They did a good job. So I'm happy. So that's solved. I don't have to worry about that. But the content itself, I really don't care. I mean, it really doesn't matter to me, and that's kind of my point about how we're chasing the wrong things. Is if it's Beef Initiative, right? If it's Meat Mafia, you create a little community, which, by the way, is not little. Yeah. And that community spills over. What's cool, I was just realizing this morning, what's cool is that the expansion of a community happens when two tribes intersect. So when you get No Agenda bumping up to Beef Initiative, to Meat Mafia, to Rogan, there's crossover, there's expansion, there's growth on all sides. Yeah. It's not a war. Yes. And it doesn't work with everything, but having enough shows where people can be a guest. Not every show has to be a show with a guest. Yeah. It's actually very hard to produce, as you know. Getting guests sucks. Yes. And they always cancel and postpone and got issues. Except when you come to the Podfather, obviously. Of course, shit's all tight, right? Yeah. With gifts. Well, you did come with gifts. Yeah. You can come back anytime you want. No, it's this is an opportunity with some very motivated people, and that keeps expanding, so everyone picks up their little bits and pieces. Not everyone's going to become a beef snob, but, people will learn. And this will all, so now we've talked about raw milk. There's going to be raw milk suppliers are going to come into my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know of it. And so And I've just seen our own growth with just, with all these different things and how we look at the world. And to hear Tina say, like, what's Bitcoin at? And say, man, I wish it went down to 4,000 so we could buy more. What? Who are you?
Yes.
She's eating eggs. She had ovum phobia. Are you aware of this horrible?
No.
What is that?
It's irrational fear of eggs.
Oh, no way.
She had ovum phobia, and she's like, now she's eating hard-boiled eggs.
Wow.
And she's doing Carnivore 75 hard.
I mean,
how good does she feel?
She feels fantastic.
Which for you as her husband is probably amazing to see.
Not only that, but it's like 7:30 in the morning. It's like, darling, would you please do these burgers on the grill? I'm like, yeah, what guy doesn't want to do burgers at 7:30 on the grill? Like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. That's excellent. Yeah. Because I didn't have to think about the defrosting of the beef. She's already there.
Right.
She's done her special mixture. Good to go. Oh, yeah, no, it's been great. It's been life-changing. Yeah. Since we moved out to Fredericksburg, it's been very, very enjoyable for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That point you were saying before too about the way that these different groups kind of cross-pollinate and bump into each other, whether it's the No Agenda community, Meat Mafia, Joe Rogan Experience, et cetera. There's something there with those shared principles. And what I mean by that is we obviously met at the Beef Initiative event in Georgia. Yeah. And then prior to that, there was an awesome Beef Initiative event in Crawford, Colorado. It's a little bit smaller. It was only like 50 people. It was on Jason Wrich's ranch out in Crawford. And we were only there for 3 days, but by the time we had left that third day, it felt like we had these lasting friendships, and it almost felt like a family reunion with people that we had never met before.
Right.
It was almost
easier to dive into. Like you felt like you were already at, 2 years of knowing someone by the first day, right?
And part of that is Bitcoin Twitter, I think. Just how the algo picks that up, how we all get exposed to something, and also how we tag each other, and it doesn't really matter where that happens, but for me, that seems to be happening on Twitter mainly. And there was just a lot of people I'd seen a post from, and didn't know, like Econo Alchemist, I've heard of this guy.
He's unbelievable.
And and his wife and his kids, like, holy crap. So that's what, especially with the setting is all, it's very family. The whole thing is family oriented. And I think no matter if it's Bitcoin or beef or education, all of that comes back to the family.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of it is coming back to the family, which is, of course, the biggest problem we have in the United States is fatherless families across the spectrum.
Do you think that's part of the issue is, because we talk about this a lot, just masculinity in general and men in their 20s. I know you were talking about how you're very concerned about the millennial generation. You've also learned from a lot of millennials. Do you think that it's almost this absence of male mentorship where a lot of younger men are struggling right now?
Well, being a man, and this is why we have Jordan Petersons of the world, and also Ye, has been labeled toxic. Where young women have definitely been alerted to, here's all things you got to look out for the toxicity, the toxic masculinity. At the same time, we're emasculated. Just turn on the television, look at mainstream commercials. Don't you know how to use the washing machine? I'm sorry, honey, I'm dumb. Like, you got the wrong brand again. Like, I'm sorry, honey, I'm dumb. So we're kind of being made to look stupid there. At this point, the hidden gem is just this proliferation of media, so that it's unstoppable. People are going to at least become more moderate in their views because there is so much out there. And I think a good way to look at it is the COVID vaccine. So now we're seeing that there's enough alternative, I'll even say alternative facts that make people wary enough to significantly lower the uptake of booster immunizations. And that's despite every single message on the mainstream. So in my opinion, that's winning. That's winning. You're not going to get everybody. You're not going to win everybody over. But it doesn't really matter anymore as long as we're taking care of each other. So, and I think there's a need for it.
Yeah.
That's I see you men, you're looking for mentorship too from above. You're looking for a little bit. And,
for sure.
And you're seeing a bunch of assholes over there. The Jamie Dimons of the world did nobody any favors.
Yeah.
And not just singling him out, but just as a figurehead. It's messed up. It's messed up. And we didn't do a good job. My generation, we were told different things. It's like, go make some money. This is going to be good. Party too. Start a family, but feel free to do your own thing. And we didn't pay a lot of attention. School board, it's for losers. Who can't get a gig. I don't care who's on that. City council, same deal. Now it matters. So, but you're seeing the take back, and I'm really every country has its own methodology. So France likes to get on the street. And you're not seeing that, but there's hundreds of thousands, not millions of people protesting. What's mad? Just whatever they're protesting, and they get to go out. They do that well. The British are okay with it. We haven't seen the angry Northerners with their picks and shovels coming down to try and beat Margaret Thatcher. But when they're on the street, you'll know it because they're thin, they're white, and they're badass, and that'll be trouble for them. And in America, we're not. I think the big organized things we've seen, there's a lot of money behind it. That's not organic, which is why we don't see a lot of big organized protests for counter messaging or maybe a more conservative family oriented messaging. We tend to go and do it. And the way we're built as a country, even though you wouldn't know it from this, our democracy's in peril talk, is we are decentralized. We're a decentralized, badass country. It really are. But we've forgotten that. We've let a lot of shitcoinery come into our basic systems. And the basis of that is always money.
Yeah.
And what's weird about that is that knowledge left me open to the interpretation of a Naomi Wolf Substack that led me to Jesus and to God. Because if you have, for the love of money is the root of all evil. If you have these sayings, I learn more and more as you get older, like, oh man, there's a reason why that proverb exists. There's a reason why we have, or still used in the old country in the Netherlands.
Right.
Man, that's still normal parlance. That really hasn't changed over there. The word police hasn't come to the woke word police haven't fucked with their language that much yet, although they're using more and more English. But the more you learn about the money system, it's like, how can people act in such an evil way to get the money, to hold on to the money, to manipulate it? Why? Are people inherently bad? And this was Naomi Wolf is a very leftist, very leftist, very elitist, very Jewish. And her conclusion was, I had to agree with, it's like, well, so there's some evil here. And if there's evil, logical conclusion, there's got to be good.
Yeah.
So now you go down a whole different rabbit hole, which was fun for me because I do conspiracy theories. And it's as certain as I know that Building 7 didn't fall down because it was lonely. Jesus is real. That mofo existed back in the day. These stories are real. And he was badass and an outlaw. And I'm liking what I'm learning about that. And just Christianity in general, which comes very close to kind of maybe people don't like it, but I still kind of like the old school American vibe,
Absolutely.
You're not the only one who's kind of come around to Christianity through. Would you give Bitcoin credit for having shown you that light or giving you that perspective on it?
No, although I do believe it's quite possibly God-given. Well, it's God-given, but I think the intent may have been the right one. We just have to figure that out. No, it was kind of looking around and going, look at all these guys I work with. Christian, Dave Jones, Mo Fax, like all these different people, Texas Slim. And my wife was kind of getting nudged at the same time. We got on this kind of journey together. So there's no coincidence. I get it. I'm seeing what's happening. And it's been very good for us so far. Yeah. I think it's been very good for us, not just so far, but yeah, definitely.
It feels like the pandemic has probably broken up a lot of people's paradigms and ways of thinking in that realm.
Yeah. Yes. Well, even before the pandemic, just knowing the financial situation, I said, it's going to have to get a lot worse before it gets better. That's just obvious. And so that kind of happened, I think, with the pandemic. And so, yeah, we'll come around to a lot of different things. And it doesn't have to be Christianity, any kind of belief other than in science, I think.
The government.
The government, that's clearly just, historically, you can kind of show where that hasn't worked out if you keep on believing in those types of institutions. It's self-fulfilling and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And we have a pretty good system here. We forgot how to use it. We got to, revamp the car here and get some things back in place. And a lot of that will come from focusing locally. And politics, the same thing. We shouldn't be that bothered about the national politics. States are still very powerful. We just have to remember how to apply that and what power your counties have and your sheriffs and all this stuff. There's a lot of stuff that we just have to relearn. And I didn't learn this in school. I grew up in Europe, so there was no reason for me to learn it. I know a lot about the parliamentary system, and dude, you don't want that.
Yeah.
You don't want that. That's democracy. Yeah. And you don't want it. It sucks. It really gets you in a gray, bland world of nothing, other than the same control.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With less prospect and no guns.
No guns. Yeah.
Which is kind of the ultimate. I think that's the main thing. And no matter what they say, no matter what system you have, we still have the guns.
Yes.
That mean for that reason we're still sitting here with without our masks on and whatever else restrictions. We'd have to have permission slips to do this in my home with more than one guest. That could have been crazy for 10 years maybe until the vaccine was developed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something to say about the shitty vaccines. At least they developed it and got it out quick so we could figure it out quick.
Yeah.
At one point, what time period during COVID did you start to think that shit was awry a little bit? And the reason why I'm asking that is I feel like wasn't your first appearance on Rogan like right in the beginning of it in 2020? Like when shit had just hit the fan?
Even better. Osterholm was on the show right after me. Remember Dr. Osterholm? He was the guy. I met him at Rogan because I'd done taping, and Osterholm had just come in. And I didn't like him when I shook his hand. What are you about? He seemed like one of these, I don't know, and I wasn't really thinking about it. But I do remember it was right before everything hit because I flew out to LA and I saw Gucci masks. So I knew that was the LA vibe of COVID, and before really anything took place. And so that was the guy that came up with the 3 million are going to die and all these numbers from the Imperial College in the UK. So then it was maybe, well, first of all, so that episode aired and Joe Rogan recertified me, and I'm forever in his debt and gratefulness because he recertified me as the Podfather, which enabled me to get so much traction with podcasting 2.0. And he also, recertified me with No Agenda. And so people started tuning in right after that. Then we got the lockdowns. Really, 2 weeks after they started doing the briefings, I knew it was bullshit. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
At first I was like, okay, I'm liking this Birx. Let me see this Fauci. Now I knew Fauci. I didn't like Fauci because I did a lot of study about AIDS.
Yes.
And I saw what he did, and I think he's very culpable. And, and it's just not me saying that. It's Robert Kennedy Jr. saying that, there's other, I'm not the lone wolf on this, that Fauci did. And I participated in it. I helped raise money for AIDS with Elton John's, Billie Jean King's charity, and auctioned off Michael Jackson's hat and did all kinds of stuff for AIDS. And was quite disappointed with really what was going on. Mm-hmm. And this also, when you learn more about health in general, you learn like, how bad was it? What was really killing people? Was it maybe not the solution, the Regeneron of the day, which would be AZT?
Yes.
So different rabbit hole. But I'm good at, I have a neural networking mind. And this is something I remember my dad put it into my head when I was very young. And he told me this story, and was a picture, an aerial picture of something. Maybe it was a Vietnam in the newspaper. And he said, there's guys who can do this neural networking with their brain, and they can see just by the way the trees look. They'll say tank, anti-aircraft gun, and they'll know how to do that. And so I developed this ability to do that with numbers, with charts. I can't do math, but I know when something's wrong. I can smell it. And then I can delve down, I can get some help, or I can use some tools. And their charts, this is fucking weird. This is not right what they're saying here. And then you start to see very quickly how things are coming together. And I predicted the passports. I predicted all of that. It was all so obvious. And sadly also completely predicted the vaccine. Didn't know how, because I'd seen in 2012 that this was the pharmaceutical industry's mission. It was a Goldman Sachs conference, one of those financial conference for CFOs. And they were like, this is the future. We're going to have vaccine for everything, for the common cold, for flu, for cocaine addiction, for alcoholism. You know, it's going to be this new technology. It's going to involve gene editing, gene splicing, CRISPR. So I'm reading that 10 years ago. So, and I went back and people would find old shows where we're laughing about this. Oh man, you can have vaccine subscriptions. And we were just horsing around. But somewhere we read enough to know that was totally possible. So all the alarm bells went off. And then No Agenda Nation came to life, and we got ventilator technicians, people who train the technicians saying we're killing people. They've put a protocol out, which is fucked. It's not right. We're killing people who don't need to die. We had boots on the ground. The hospitals are not overflowing. You know, all of this stuff.
Wow.
And you know, why there were shortages of staff, and you know, who was getting sent home, and just all these military. Oh my goodness. You know, the forced vaccinations, it's just all of this stuff, the exemptions. And we just tried to steer steady and just keep sharing everything that we had that we found credible enough. And I think we helped a lot of people navigate their way, if only to think, I'm not the only crazy fucker out there who's going against this narrative.
Yes.
It's such a different form of media, too, where you actually have an information exchange, not just one person speaking to an audience of people. You have people coming to you saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing on the ground.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Well, we have those tools.
Yeah.
You know, radio has always been a very interactive medium with phone calls. But that's about it, and maybe a postcard. So now we have the email tools. We have the instant message. We have chat rooms. I love doing the show live with the chat room in my peripheral vision so I can see it, because I've learned to pick things up from that, and you know, mistakes are corrected. Great one-liners. Most of my one-liners come from the troll room. It's trolling. They keep me sharp. They make me mad. You know, they'll be like, you a-hole Curry. You know, this is wrong. You liar, or whatever. It doesn't matter. That'll wake me up and get me mad. You know, I'll kick someone out of the troll room. Yeah. But then I'm like, okay, and I got to correct what I'm saying here. So that loop is fantastic. Yeah, it's a great loop, and with I love adding the boostergrams to it when we're doing it live, like with podcasting 2.0, because you know, now people are doing numerology and doing all kinds of cool messaging, and it's short, and we're making a value loop at the same time. Hey, you laugh, you thought that was cool, you want to say something, you send me some value back right away, and I can acknowledge it 2 seconds later. This is beautiful.
Did you see that increase during the pandemic when people kind of were frozen, paralyzed a bit by the lack of information?
We doubled our audience.
Wow.
It's incredible.
And you know what it was? We went from 80% men to 50-50. It's the mama bears came out.
Yes.
Wow. They were looking. Like, where can I get some information? What other stuff can I find to protect my family? Even though they might not have said it that way, that's what was going on.
Oh my gosh.
It was beautiful to watch.
And you look at the way that shows like you, who've been able to provide access to information, the benefits of everything that you've done. You think about the cities that we fled from. Harry was in Boston. I was in New York, the New Jersey area.
Yeah.
And mothers are worried that they're going to make, you know, their kids are going to be vaccinated, they're being masked up, you know, their kids are being told that they're bad students because they're pulling their mask down in front of their faces. And you're like, am I the only crazy one in this entire area? So to listen to someone like you and give these alternative perspectives.
And I have the bonus that they all used to swoon over me on the MTV days.
There you go. You have that too.
The comeback.
So clearly I can trust him. The guy who sold me Skittles and Noxzema skin cream. I mean, clearly I can trust that guy. And you know, don't forget we have Dvorak. Dvorak, you know, he's a steady rock, you know, and he's there to correct my course when I go all nuts and just go on something that's really quite implausible at the moment.
Yes.
Which is important. You know, it's important. So it's really John and I it's really we talk about it reasonably often if we talk, because we don't. We talk on the show. That's it. I'm tired of talking about
it
after the show. Oh, we don't talk at all.
That's cool.
Wow.
No, we don't discuss anything. We don't discuss our topics. We find it. That's why we were talking, right? I'm like, we're wasting good content here.
Yeah.
100%.
We do that
Because
all
a
the
lot of
time.
that stuff doesn't come back in the conversation.
Totally.
And you talked about it, you covered it, and like, shit, we didn't talk about that. So that's one reason we don't do that.
Yeah.
And the other is I don't have nothing. I'm done. I got nothing left to say to the guy.
Right.
We're not great friends. We're really good acquaintances. You could probably say friends, but no. When we meet in person, it's awkward.
Is that common?
I don't know. I mean, Tina laughed her ass off, and we met each other in person maybe 6 years ago or something at Grand Duke David Foley's house in California, and she said, "Oh my God, you guys like." Awkward hug, like not really looking at each other, like looking at the ground, hey, want a drink, like, yeah, pretty cool. We had nothing to say because we say it's 6 hours a week, so that's more than enough. So my work wife has defined hours, which is really nice.
That's good.
Yeah.
Clear parameters.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier that freedom of speech wasn't in your mind necessarily when some of these things around podcasting were coming up. When did that shift for you? Was it around the pandemic or was it pre-pandemic when you're like, this is a serious tool for the decentralization of information?
2019.
Really?
When Apple took off, there was a day, and Apple and Facebook and Twitter and Google and Amazon and the whole FANG lineup, they all took down Alex Jones' X22 report, and some other like 5 or 6 podcasts, Spotify as well. And that, so that for me was like, oh, this is a real problem because we've never had this. Podcasting has always been such a decentralized medium, and nothing has really ever changed because in order to change the way podcasting works, you need both sides. You need the app side and the hosting company that creates the RSS feed, or at least that tool. And so no one uses, or few use an independent tool to create their feed and host it on their own server. They use a Buzzsprout or a Blueberry or Transistor or Captivate, and on and on and on. So that's why there had never been any innovation, because Apple they're like, it works, we don't need to do anything, so we're not going to change anything. Well, if Apple doesn't change anything, then nothing changes. And then it turned out that if you wanted your show to show up in Overcast, it had to be on Apple. Now, Apple has an onboarding process. You got to be approved. That, by definition, is not the way podcasting was supposed to work. So, and now they're tinkering with their results, and they're doing different things with the API, which was another issue. No, so that's a problem. So we started with the original. We dialed it back, but the original slogan for podcastindex.org was protecting freedom of speech.
Wow.
And that, oh my God, at that point, there was so much wokeness going on. And people who were involved in the project, who were really working on the project, said, at very least recognize that this gives us not a head start on trying to achieve something because people think it's some, freedom of speech. It is, of course, gun-loving, beef-eating, crazy motherfuckers. and yes, well, that's kind of true.
Yes.
But I
Check.
understand, and thank you, liberals, for being here in the group, and I love you too, and we all love each other, and we'll make a compromise. So we said protecting podcasting, protecting, extending, and really creating the future of podcasting. But it's obvious what we're doing because people show up and say, hey, shit, I got kicked off there and there. Where do I go? Well, you're welcome here.
Yeah.
And anybody can join in. There's no cost. It's all backwards compatible with everything else. You can still be on Apple. But if you want to make sure that when you wake up on Tuesday morning that you're not off of Apple and 20 apps, then we're your guys. And if you want to make sure that some payment processor doesn't take you down because you mentioned weed or guns or beef or whatever, then we have the system for you. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a drop-in replacement. Freedom always requires one extra step. Sorry, you're going to have to do something painful and maybe sign up for a wallet or learn something. Here's the 10,000 podcasts that have already done it, so it's possible. You don't have to be a Bitcoiner to understand how this works. And And what makes me the most happy and proud is that I finally got this, because I view this as an orchestra, this whole podcasting 2.0. And Dave and I are conductors. He's the technical conductor. I'm the co-conductor. I don't really have a role. He does all the technical stuff. But together, with that, and also directing each other, we have this group of easily 50 to 100 people, and they're developers and podcasters and listeners and smart people and people who write documentation, and a lot of them come from No Agenda Nation. But it's like, okay, here's our orchestra. It's got a guy with a banjo, a washboard. We got what do I see there? I see a theremin, so together we got to make that music go. And then to see that other people are writing documentation about what is podcasting. I don't want to be the central point. I can't say this is what podcasting is. It's going to be different for all these different types of constituents who use the core technology. And to see that happen, and to see the Fountain app just go fucking skyrocket. They're gamifying the streaming payments. They got all kinds of things going on. It's beautiful to watch that. But I also love watching Podverse. And Mitch is focused on accessibility. So he was early with transcripts, which is great for people. English as a second language. They can read along. Obviously, other disabled people. What can you say? Like me? Yeah. What? Although hearing aids is laughed at. No one sees it for the disability that it really is. But also screen readers. So, blind people who are a big podcast listening audience, they can easily navigate around the app. So he's focusing on that segment. I'm not saying he's focusing on it, but that he put a lot of work into it, and that gets him a certain audience. And by the way, the thing that we baked into this puppy is that everybody gets a piece of the value. So the payments can be split. So you can determine, if you have 5 people working on the show, they all get 5 equal cuts. The software developer also gets a piece of that. And yes, Podcast Index really appreciates it when the 1% is added to come to us. So now we have the money flow. This is how a society can work.
Absolutely.
It's not enough to live on for anybody right now, but this is how it can work. And these splits, these digital transparent payments, where I can see publicly how much percentage of what I'm giving you goes and where it goes to. I mean, it's fantastic. It gives people a really good vibe. It's like, look at all the people I'm supporting. That's what I don't steal or accept pirated content. I've always paid for it because it has been my bread and butter, mainstream. And so with all the kids, even with Tina in the beginning, they're like, well, $20 is really expensive for this movie. I said, okay, well, I'm gonna go for it. And at the end, we're gonna watch the credits, and you tell me. Look at how many people worked on this bitch.
Yeah.
Look at how many people worked and slaved on this thing and got it to where it is. And that, I think that's well worth $20.
100%.
It's like, look at all the people.
Oh yeah.
So, and that's, to go beyond the marquee names and their top salaries, so I believe in that. And that's kind of where Bitcoin comes back around, and the value and not screwing people. And, there's no real incentive to horse around, I think, once you get into a hard money, a real money situation.
Which is awesome to hear you talk about all this, because we do have a lot of Bitcoiners that listen to the show, but we're really a nutritional podcast by trade. So a lot of people that aren't necessarily invested in Bitcoin or even understand what podcasting 2.0 is yet are now getting that insight into, your perspective behind it and why you created this idea of podcasting 2.0.
Wait a minute. You're not doing this podcast for chicks?
That's always part of it. That's always part of it.
I thought podcasting was like the new day trader.
We're starting to do video now. So,
yeah. Well, it is funny. A lot of people think we're like 60-year-old Italian men. They don't realize that we have that these are just anonymous accounts, and it's an ode to the Godfather. People have no idea what they're walking into when they get into the show with us.
I can see that. Yeah, I could. Well, I when I first heard about the Meat Mafia, I didn't quite know what to expect. I was like, what kind of Goomba? I had more like, what kind of Goombas are these going to be?
Exactly.
Like, this will be like a Rogan with beef. I'm like, no, they're actually kind of Well, first of all, they're good-looking men, and they got a good story. They have a good rap. I mean, I loved your story, which you told at Beef Initiative. I mean, holy crap! You know, it's amazing.
Yeah, it speaks to the core of kind of like what excites us about a lot of the things you're talking about with like freedom of speech. It's like there's a message and a story out there to be told around real nutrition and real food, and we're excited to be taking part in that conversation because, as you've probably realized in your area of the decentralized information world, the mainstream is taking the narrative in the exact opposite direction that we're talking about when it comes to nutrition. But I kind of believe the truth prevails in the end. And
yeah, and you can't fix everybody.
Yeah.
You just can't. You know, it's like it's just what it is. And it's kind of weird to say it that way, but there's not going to be any. It's like I've been on Rogan 4 times, and Bitcoin has come up every single time. And I've taken a different. I'm not trying to orange pill him. It just comes up, and I just give him my
soft
opinion.
orange pill.
Soft orange pill. Well, I got him last time. I said, "Hey, man, Bitcoin doesn't have a CEO. Ethereum does." He said, "Does that tell you something?" He said, "Oh, that's interesting." So I had a little catch there, but it's like whenever I'm on, then my timeline on Twitter is filled with, "You didn't do it right. You didn't orange pill him. You should get Sifadine on. You know, like you have this person, this, that, and that." I'm like, having Joe Rogan orange pilled is not the goal. It's not the end all, the be all. You can't. I mean, orange pilling means someone is interested enough that they go and learn for themselves.
Totally.
You can't just sit there and explain it, and the light bulbs go off, and the audience would probably be bored.
Yeah.
Because the ones that don't see it yet, you might catch a few. But that's just not the way it's going to work. They're going to find you. You know, they're going to find, you know, the food intelligence brand. Man, Texas Slim that guy is a branding marketing machine.
He really is.
He takes like words of proof of work and applies it to a cow. You know, that's good, man. It
really is.
That's deep thinking and nodes, and even spilled over into your speech. And how don't all of us at this point talk about intentionality? Man, I haven't heard that word ever in my life. I had to look it up. Yeah, it's a real word. Like, holy crap, this is a good one. I should use that more often.
Oh my gosh.
You know, so I don't know where I was going with that.
No, I think we were just talking about there's just a really cool convergence between what the three of us are doing, right? And why we're such strong believers in everything that we're doing with Podcasting 2.0 is because we have these amazing anecdotal stories. Thousands of other people do too by eating beef, but that's an alternative health movement that's going against the mainstream narrative. And we've even started to get things that are flagged because we're not preaching the traditional narrative on saturated fat or even around vaccinations and things like that. So for us, knowing that we have this haven where we can say whatever we want, and we can actually help people get healthier. That's the whole point of it, is getting the DM from the mom that said, "Hey, my son also had ulcerative colitis. He started eating all beef. He's no longer going to the bathroom 15 times a day and can actually live his life." That's the whole point, is being able to pump out this information.
That, and every single person I've spoken to who does a podcast, I said, during COVID, and I consider us to be out, during COVID, tell me you didn't receive 10, 100, thousands of emails from people saying, "Hey man, hey woman, thank you. You got me through a day, a week, a year, or something. Whatever was going on in that podcast, it really helped me. You got it."
Yeah,
100%.
Right? And man, what a reward that is, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my
Are you
gosh.
guys, do you accept boostergrams and streaming sats?
So we're just starting to get into.
How dare you
this
come
whole-
to my house with anything but a yes?
We do. The answer is yes, but we're still trying to figure it out.
Sure, I'm happy to help. Whatever help you need, let me know.
Yeah.
We'll get you help. I can help.
Where do you think most people go wrong with value to value?
The extra step. The extra step is you got to get Bitcoin. You got to get Satoshis. You got to get your head into that space. And when I say Lightning is nothing more than Venmo for Bitcoin, it helps people a little bit.
Yeah.
There's still this point where in order to get Bitcoin into your Lightning wallet, you have to get Bitcoin, then have to find out a place that will transfer it in sats into a podcast wallet, a podcast app wallet. For the podcaster side, right now, honestly, Satoshi Stream or Fountain they've kind of done the best where you can claim your feed. It still works with Podcast Index on the back end, which is nice because that way, no matter what experience someone puts up for onboarding, it'll work. So they let you claim your feed and they give you some statistics. Now we have Albi, getalbi.com. And so they have a wallet that you can set up with your with Podcasting 2.0, which you can do at podcasterwallet.com. What's nice about GetAlbi is that they really want this to be the everyday, really like a Venmo where you use it for spending and receiving all the time. For podcasting, they came up with a beautiful interface. You can see the timeline when people send boostergrams, etc. We're only just beginning. I mean, it's 100%. Just starting. But when people catch on to it, and it's important, the two things that are important that make it work is you have to ask. So, please, so right now what we're saying is someone can boost us.
Yeah.
So you just don't know where to get the boostergrams yet?
We have a Fountain wallet.
So you get it in Fountain.
Yeah.
Okay, you're doing it right so far. What's the problem?
No, I think it's just mentally getting comfortable asking.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I mean.
This is the big thing. It's the hardest shit in the world because we don't come from this. We don't come from asking. Americans don't really do that. Texas Slim is still, we talk about it a lot. How do I ask this? Feels like begging, doesn't feel right. If I say just a tip, I don't get shit because I get a tip, which is exactly what you're asking for.
Right.
But if you say, this is why it's called value for value. Like if you, so I look at the credits on the screen and I think, wow, man, that $20 was well worth it. I might have given 40 if they had asked me. But they didn't. So this is the idea. It's like no one can value what you're doing except the person who's receiving it. So you ask them to take that into consideration for a moment. So you listen to this right now. What is this podcast worth to you? For some, it's just entertaining bit, maybe $5. For some, they may have gotten a stock tip out of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
$50. Some you may have saved their life. They give you $5,000. I mean, I've seen, and it doesn't matter. It's not like I'm jumping up and down for the $5 the same I am for the 5,000.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a lifestyle that turns out a lot of psychology and a lot of smart people have looked into how this works. Why do people give? Here's what I can tell you from my wife, a communications professional in the nonprofit world. She's semi-retired now. She still advises me on an ad hoc basis. But last gig was chief communications officer for Ronald McDonald House Charities in Central Austin. And so she knows what she's talking about, made her life career out of it. The number one reason people don't give money is because they weren't asked. That's how fucking simple it is.
It's so true.
Now, I like the expansion of it by saying this property, this media property that I have, I accept all forms of value. And I recognize 3: time, talent, treasure.
Right.
So if you maintain the website for me, man, you got a couple things covered right there. Thank you very much. You don't ever have to send me anything. Just you're doing that. That's great. What a great value return. Void Zero, who has run our infrastructure for at least 13 of the past 15 years in Groningen, in the Netherlands, never asked for a penny. We just pay for the server charges. The No Agenda Meetups, another great example. We didn't build noagendameetups.com. One of our producers did. We call them producers, by the way. It's very important. It's a difference of so also when you have that relationship, you're not a fan expecting greatness from me because I really am not. I'm the wrong guy for that. I'm not the Teen Beat, although I was in Teen Beat once.
You were in Teen Beat once?
Star of the Week. Yeah.
Man of many talents.
Fucking A, man. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I sent that one to my mom. She liked
Did you?
It. Yeah.
She was proud.
She thought that was funny. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I was going to say, we've been so lucky to come across a lot of Bitcoiners in Austin because I think this whole concept speaks to what we want to support, but we don't necessarily naturally know that these rails exist, this value for value rails. Mm-hmm. And so we've come across Def by 21. He has a Talking in Bits podcast, and he's helped us out on the production side and kind of introduced us really to like, we heard it from you in Georgia, and then he started getting into the nuts and bolts and actually getting to explain like how to actually apply this to our podcast. And it was just so cool because obviously we're all ears, we're Bitcoiners. This stuff already makes sense to us. We just didn't know that it was a legitimate way to support our podcast.
So, and that's what we've, and this is just the experience I've had of doing it for literally almost 15 full years. You just ask. And you say, look, we like doing this. We need to support ourselves, our family, whatever. We're putting all of it in here, all in. And we've always been very, very transparent. I ate my airplane in the beginning of No Agenda. We weren't making enough money. There were no tools really. There wasn't even it was barely. Well, there was the iPod. There wasn't even the iPhone at the time, or just barely. So you just tell them where it is, just the way we're talking now. And then when they support you, preferably through a boostergram, but it could be through any mechanism, put a little note in there. And what happens very quickly is then when you read the note on the air, you can't read them all at a certain point, so you have cutoffs, and you're just transparent about that. Also, the amount they send. Tell everybody what that amount is. That works in many ways. Inspirational, educational, funny when it's numerology. The number of $69.69 I've gotten in my life. How many 420s have I seen? Pi Day is a big winner because everyone's sending 314 or $3.14 or 314,000 sats. This becomes a thing, and then people actually anticipate this, and this is part of the language. So money becomes freedom of speech. It becomes part of the message. That loop doesn't have to be long. You don't have to linger on it. We go long because we're big, but that's why we do 3 hours. We used to do an hour and a half. Now we have longer donation segments, so we have to have more content. But that's the value loop. If we did less content, we get less value back. I'm sure of it. If we sucked, the same thing would happen. By the way, right now, we got really hurt by PayPal. Yeah. The monthly subscriptions that people just let take over, everyone canceled, and that makes a big difference. We put it out there, and what did people do? Immediately start to add some extra support. We get exactly what we deserve. Yeah. Which is all I ask the Lord for. I want everything, but I want it all, but I want exactly what I deserve. But I want it all. Yeah. And that is the system. That's how it works. And don't be afraid to talk very transparently, particularly about the value of the money, because you're placing something of value and you're putting it out there, and what its value is to you to make it, because you're making sacrifices or other things, and just watch. You just watch. Wow. If you're consistent, it will happen. It will happen.
What finally convinced you to open up the floodgates 15 years ago and start taking donations? Were you taking sponsorships before that, and then you finally decided that you wanted to switch?
No, when we started, we knew that we could never take sponsorships because of just what we're going to talk about. And we weren't interested. We didn't want any meetings with advertisers. We just wanted to have a podcast out there that was fun that we did.
Got it.
But then it turned out to be a little more work, and we're studying and making clips and stuff. And so we said, why don't you, I think we started with $3 a week or $5 a month or something, whatever. And of course, it was also early days of podcasting, but just because Adam Curry does a podcast doesn't mean that all of a sudden subscriptions roll in. It was just like, it was just not, it was almost not worth the ask. It's like, okay, a couple $100, but that's not really going to work for us. And we discussed this on the air, and we said, well, how about this? Is this podcast worth anything to you? What is it worth to you? Let us know. Send in the money. Open-ended. A lot of 5s, more 5s than we got before. That was really nice. A significant number of 50s, couple 500s. Well, that was it. Dang. Didn't look back. Said, this is what producers do. Executive producers in Hollywood mostly put up the money. They get some value out of it. It's rarely to make a profit. It's usually to bang the actress. You can't bang us, but we will give you as much damn value as we can in this podcast. Yeah. And we never look back. And right away, the numerology started, the fun things, and then there would be a jingle. And then because you're now producers, people are sending in stuff. And as technology has gotten easier to use and more editing tools and just the familiarity with it and education, now, like the clip custodian, Neil Jones, He's also in Alabama, and during COVID he was listening to us, and he was literally a school custodian, and he decided, you know what, I feel emboldened by the podcast. I'm going to go out and I'm going to finally sell my plants to farmers markets. But he started doing clips for me. Every show he'd send 5, 10, 12, 15, and really professionally done, the right clips, all the mainstream crap that is so tedious to listen to and work through. And he just started doing that. I said, dude, look, the show doesn't take Bitcoin right now, but 20% of any boost that comes in anyway is going to you. And so we've had this beautiful value exchange.
Wow.
With a true producer, and he understands that he's not making anywhere near what a producer would make for cutting those clips, but he loves doing it. His life is in a good spot, reasonably good spot, and that exchange of value is in addition. So he loves giving that value to the show, and he's getting something back extra for that work. The possibilities are endless. So what I see Fountain do with the sats and the value, someone who creates a clip of a show, they get streaming sats for when that's played. This delights me.
Yeah.
This is creating new, and we're experimenting. We call it running with scissors, because someone's eye is going to get poked out, and you're probably going to get a scratch or two yourself. But man, we're going to figure something out here because it's fun.
Are there any trends that you see now happening that you saw kind of at the early days of the internet and when you were looking at technology then and seeing things developing?
Yeah, I think a lot of the early days, I replicated the way we did podcasting 1.0 precisely. We start a podcast. The podcast is about podcasting 2.0. It's about the development. We have developers on as guests. It's much more sophisticated than daily source code at the time. And so immediately it feels like old school days. But the openness of the free and open software, like really free software and open source projects like Podcast Index, it's very reminiscent of the early days of slinging HTML and setting up websites, and everybody had the blink tag came out and had blinking text on all of our websites, and it was like, and we're just all kind of figuring it out. New languages being written. I mean, podcasting 2.0, we've written a whole namespace. I didn't, the company didn't, Dave Jones didn't. A group of people who collectively wanted to achieve something for their own personal goals, but could only do it by working together and having this payment mechanism that, if you're successfully can integrate and become a part of the network that is 2.0, you can get a payment split if you're being used in the network.
Yeah.
Right now, okay, it's sats, but let me tell you, man, there's nothing more exciting to me. Hold on a second. Now, it's a Wednesday, which is the lowest day of the week, I'll be honest. But if I just bring up the podcast index node here, and so you'll see, so we get 1% for every transaction. So this is, you're seeing one sat. So that's someone just listened to a minute. Someone just listened to a minute. Someone just listened to a minute. So this will just start streaming at a certain point. And sometimes it's 20, 30 payments a minute. And it's streaming nonstop, 24/7.
It's incredible.
And okay, I mean, look, there's another one. And so I showed this in the very beginning to my buddy here, boom, the former New York banker. Yeah, there's one for 16 sats. So that's someone streaming a larger amount, or might have been part of a boostergram. The former New York banker who ran away from banking, but he's still in finance. He said, "You're a genius." And he hates Bitcoin. Hates it because, of course, it fucks with his core instrument, the dollar. See how that's going? Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. 12.
He says, "You're a genius." I said, "Why?" He said, "So you're getting 1% of everything that's transacted here." I said, "Yeah, technically. I mean, it's opt-in. I mean, the apps don't have to put it in, and there's one or two that might not do it all the time, whatever." He said, "That's what all of Wall Street has always been based on one thing: fees. It's really the fees. is how do we get 1% of all the money? So I'm happy to see Fountain and Breeze and Podverse getting 4 or 5% that they deserve because they're putting in all the work.
Yeah.
So it's not the amount of money right now. It's just a blip that came through. But see how excited I get when I'm like, this. There's a real person listening to a full minute on Podcasting 2.0 and returning value to the whole chain, including the index, which provides some of the core services. That's fair value, and it's distributed. It's in real time. No one can interrupt it.
Yeah. You can see how this can scale too. Just going back to what we were talking about, really, with the Beef Initiative, with the Meat Mafia, with the No Agenda podcast, with this whole ecosystem of people who think similarly and have similar values around free speech, and these, people should be able to put their opinions out there. It's like if we're all tying our ships together, and this idea, the rails of this technology actually are able to make this concept of this economy work, you can see how it can actually scale and people actually come around to it.
It's also because it's education. I mean, it's just like nutrition is education, technology is education. So when a kid is raised with an iPhone or an iPad in the stroller, they're not going to easily convert to, well, hey, if I just learn even how to open up a command line on Ubuntu, or any Linux system, that I could actually make the computer work for me for this need that I have, and I can probably copy and paste some code from somebody, or I can find somebody, or I can learn how to set up systems so that I don't have to play by the rules of Silicon Valley on their social networks, or maybe I want to set that up for my kids so they can have their friends like a Mastodon. I could keep it a little more in check and keep my eye on them, or just I think it's like, hey kid, you want an iPhone? Here's my old laptop. When you can load Linux on that thing and you connect it, and you set up a web server on it, then you get a phone. Or something, we need some incentive to learn how this works, because the solution is right there. The entire network is open. We have immutable, Bitcoin is a messaging system. It's just messaging, a ledger entry. So we have many ways like Bitcoin to communicate, to message uninterrupted. Does require an extra step. You might have to figure out how to set it up instead of a thumbprint sign up, log in through your phone. But once we have that, then the world opens up. Then totally. And this is why alternative networks are always branded as wrong. Mastodon is horrible people. Reddit, well, not Reddit, but like 4chan, horrible people. Where there's lots of 4chan channels, there's lots of stuff. Discord, anything that really is not controllable is going to be terrorists, extremists, white nationalists, Nazis, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of scary, And I can see where. But do you get people who push back against your message, where they say, "Hey man, you're freaking me out, or you're scary, or you're saying the wrong thing, or you're killing people"?
I think we've done a good job of keeping a somewhat balanced approach. I think when we first started, we were a little bit more dogmatic, pushing the carnivore animal-based diet, and we've switched our tune to we're just trying to improve
like I did with free speech and podcasting, podcastindex.org. Dial it down a little bit, and just focus on getting people healthier and giving people more autonomy. And what we mean by that is, we just want you cooking your own meals and eating real foods. Like we said in the Beef Initiative, and our definition of real foods is meat, fish, eggs, fruits, vegetables, raw dairy, cheese, if you can tolerate it. And it's really up to you to determine what ratios make the most sense for you and your body. Mm-hmm. So I think doing that has given us a little bit more of a balanced approach, but we have noticed probably like the last 2 months since we've grown larger, there have been, I don't know if they're vegan bots or not, but more people are starting to come after us and question us, which we just view that's a sign that we're doing. We're probably saying Russian
the right things.
disinformation is what you are. Trying to weaken us with your beef ploy.
Exactly.
That's what's going on here.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, PETA, you'll get PETA.
Yeah, we got PETA pretty early on.
Yeah.
We had some fun with that.
Yeah.
A PETA intern on Twitter. Yeah. Just made fun of them. But
it was even the whole Tucker, what was the Tucker Carlson documentary, The End of Men? Did you get to watch that at all?
No, I've seen some of his interviews and just the stuff he's done on the show. We haven't watched that yet. I'm sure it's depressing. Maybe that's why I haven't picked it up yet.
Yeah, were you
in that?
No. We watched the trailer for it. Neither of us have gotten to see it yet.
You should be in it.
But from what I'm hearing is from people that we respect in the space that it almost painted this whole movement to be like caricaturized, would you say?
Really?
Yeah.
Where it's like
the nutritional movement?
it was kind of like a bunch of meatheads like slonking eggs and things like that. And it's so much more than that.
I saw that.
Yes.
I saw the trailer with the slonking eggs.
Yes.
Is that what it's slonking?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like,
I have done that. I have slonking.
Have you?
Yeah.
what's your impression of it?
Overrated.
Yeah.
People think it's just gonna like.
But I used to put raw eggs in a protein shake. I've done that before. But yeah, the whole with the morning sunlight backlit slonking 5 eggs in a glass. Yeah, a little much.
I feel like for people who are actually trying to like move the needle with this whole message around nutrition and free speech and free access to high quality protein, it's like
You make a good point here. Watching the trailer, maybe this is why I haven't watched it. I look at the body types that are portrayed, and I'm like, that's not me. I'm just thinking about it now. Like, I'm probably not tuning in because there's this whole piece that doesn't apply to me, which is the working out, the body. Not that I couldn't do some of that for myself, but I know I saw the trailer and was like,
Yes.
I'm never going to be like that. That's just not for me anymore. So I think that's a turnoff probably. Probably is.
And it's addressing critical issues in terms of like the decline of just average testosterone, and I think sperm count is down like 60% over the last 50 years.
The taints are shorter.
Yes, they are.
But there's a taint problem of epic proportions. Joe Rogan and I have discovered. This is not a joke. It's really true.
what was that combo like?
Well, we did this in public.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said, this doctor said that, men's the distance, the taint is shorter, and that this is part of the reproductive system shutting down over time through generations. To which immediately, every man who watched that show was like, "Holy crap! Let me go measure that shit, man.
Where's
Let's
my
go."
ruler?
Yeah.
You better believe it. My daughter's like, Kevin's good, Dad. Don't worry about
Don't
it.
worry.
We checked the taint. Like, nice, thanks.
Thanks.
You need that visual.
Thanks. That's really what I needed to hear.
But it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. But atrazine, this stuff has been going on for a while. It was Dvorak who turned me on to this over a decade ago.
The atrazine is
'cause
crazy.
we used to play the Seed Man. We called it the Seed Man, Alex Jones. And it was more of a way for me to bring something that I thought Alex was really great about and said something, and to present it in a humorous way. And, that's Alex. It's like, it's turning the frogs gay. That's one of our most frequently played clips. But we played it because it's true. The atrazine is turning the frogs, not gay, but it's making them
Like feminization.
literally turning male frogs into female frogs with reproductive everything. So yeah, man, this is not healthy situation.
Yeah. I mean, the numbers don't lie when you do, like we're talking about, just the average testosterone and sperm and the data points, it's all right there. And then you have a generation of men that have grown up watching porn for 10 years before they've ever even
this is a real
slept with a
problem.
woman. It's a real problem. Just the overabundance of cheap dopamine that's everywhere.
And the twisted imagery, because it's not, what I'm seeing on the porn sites is not all representative of what, sex
100%.
is.
Not reality.
It's like- And girls, the same thing. They're also getting weird expectations. This is very destructive.
Definitely.
I can't dive too deep in that because I think it would really fucking depress me.
Yeah. No, it's a sad topic.
How bad that really is.
Well, and it's like, how is that free? I mean, it's so easily accessible.
Oh, because it's all tracking. It's all malware tracking. I mean, they make more money off data brokers than anything.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's all tracking.
Do you get the sense that or are you confident that the pendulum is swinging back the other direction? From
regarding porn?
No, kind of this like wokeness, like crazy, because I feel like we kind of got culturally we've gotten off the rails in terms of just having some semblance of being able to speak up against some of the absurdities that are happening out there. And it's like, when and where do we draw the lines? When can we start actually seeing people stand up and say like, hey, this is BS. We need to start making some serious changes. Otherwise, we're going to have a culture of people or a generation of people who are, just totally shaped by these woke ideologies.
I think it comes down to who pays for it. As long as there's money for it, like the ESG type stuff that pays for a lot of the corporate woke guidance. I don't see that. That's just, as long as there's money for that, that's going to continue. That's going to be a thing. Early on, I saw Matthias de Smet, the Belgian psychologist, professor, talk about the mass formation, which incorrectly then morphed into mass formation psychosis, which is not his analysis, which also immediately led to Hitler, which was how it kind of got discredited. But mass psychosis, the mass formation in general, I believe there is a 30% that is just completely all in, mind controlled. I'll do whatever, NPC type person.
Yeah.
Then there's 30% that is no way. I see through this. Maybe not as vocal, but are usually vocal. And then there's just that middle piece, that third in the middle, who are willing to go either way just to not make waves. And I see that definitely, not like it's shifting, but the divisional line is fraying. And the failure of the mRNA vaccines is ground zero on that. Or the demilitarized zone. That's where we have to approach this with love, man, because we can't be like, oh, you regret it now, bitch? That's not the way it's going to go, because we got to, people who want health, what can we do? What can we, can beef make you better if shit's happening in your body that wasn't intended? There's all kinds of things, functional medicine. There's different ways we can start to attend. I think to the wounded is the way I see it. So when you get that, now it still may not be culturally right on either side to say whatever you want to say, but that's a gray area now, and it's starting to spill over, and that's why podcasting is important, because you can still get the real message without it being algoized or influenced, and you can learn about different things. So like friends of mine who said, I've tried every crazy thing. I've tried all the diets, all the medication. I'm trying this beef thing. Crap. Mm-hmm. I feel a difference. And how do you learn about it? You're not going to learn about it from the television. So people go off on their own. I think still human beings are thirstful for knowledge. It's when you're in the dopamine loop, you're right. This is a problem. But a lot of people still get that one moment of clarity where like, I got to get out of this. I think that's still possible. Yeah. I don't think everyone's lost. We're not idiocracy, although man, we're on a track to some degree. But now there's enough voices and enough people are seeing what they're putting in their bodies. What is this shit? And even Slim is really brilliant to just do a walk down a supermarket aisle and say, I'm living in fucking cartoon world. This is your food, which it's not, by the way. It's not food. Look at the cartoons. Yeah. It's Disneyland. This is not what you want to put in your body. Something simple like that. Or even how he got me. I forgot to tell that part of the story. He says, here's what my great-grandparents looked like. He said, what do you see? I said, well, funky clothes, but, it looked like, people salt of the earth, wiry, ranching, doing their thing in Texas. He says, right, now you see their bodies. He said, yeah. He said, now go look at Houston, Texas. Any picture you want, anything of the street.
Oh my gosh.
Obesity is everywhere. Yeah. So where is it coming from? And then you start to see, and thanks to COVID and what the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry and insurance industry and government and the media industry, what they did to us, not as part of some grand master plan, but man, I just have to say evil. It just crept in and all sides were winning. As long as we go in this direction, everybody wins. We all make more money. Mm-hmm. And that's how the system works. So what at the bottom, at the root of that, what was the problem? I come back to Bitcoin. It's the money. It's the money.
Yeah.
100%.
So it's good now that the free money ride is over. Now we're going to see a lot of people learning what it's like when the money's just not free.
Yeah.
And marketing budgets are slashed and employment is slashed and everyone's downsizing. And Bezos just came out yesterday. He said, this shit is real, because he's looking at real-time numbers. He's like, this shit is real. We're contracting. We're not going to sell as much. We have to get rid of people. So we're going to see. Now, the question is, what happens then? Do we get into stimmy checks again? And the CBDC conversation is more hot than ever.
Yep.
MasterCard is now preparing to deal with stable coins. Yeah, they call it crypto, but I think their whole game is stable coins. So shit is shifting. And when a bunch of bankers tell you they're going to do something like a great reset, believe them. This is not the same as it's not like the Illuminati. It's not the Bilderberg group with their secret meetings. They're out there. They got slide presentations. They got graphs. They got instructions. They got rehearsals. They're working with Johns Hopkins to do a whole war gaming of certain scenarios. This shit is real.
Yeah. They're
really doing that. And just to say, it's a drinking club. No, they're doing it.
Yeah.
They're doing it. So all that stuff is now. Do I believe that we'll see the quantum financial system with off-world satellites that are processing everything in real time, and then the Sarah will come back and Donald Trump will be our president automatically? No, probably not like that.
Yeah.
But we have some very powerful tools.
Yeah.
Do you think that's even...
You want to just wait, because that's just something today. Tina will get it.
We're good?
We are back.
Adam, one of the things that I was going to say to you is in context, in regards to the Great Reset, we were joking, you were calling us bastards for being 28 and 29 years old.
Yeah, fuckers.
Fuckers. But if you were giving advice to someone in their 20s and 30s with this whole concept of a Great Reset looming, do you think it's even more incentive to create a podcast or put out some type of creative medium online, as opposed to kind of being like subjugated to like corporate 9-to-5 jobs, and you're kind of just in the midst of the Great Reset and that entire agenda?
I have not really been a corporate guy myself, though I took my company public in '96, ran a public company, had 700 employees. It was a wonderful experience. There were some not so wonderful moments. So I know what it's like on both sides of the equation of employer-employee. I think that certainly any company that is, again, it comes back to the money, man. It comes right back to, because we had to report our quarterly earnings, quarterly, and you report the earnings, and then the next day it's like, well, let's get ready for the next earnings, because you're always just trying to satisfy all of the obligations, and that trickles down, and that pain is felt everywhere. And quite honestly, back in the day, if we had, so it's called Think New Ideas. It was a big marketing services firm. Earlier we built Budweiser.com. We built Continental Airlines website. We built PlanetReebok.com, Tampax.com. The website you visit more than once a month. A real slogan.
Yeah, I like that.
So we did lots of lots of fun stuff, but there were pitches and work that had to be done, and myself and my partner, we'd go to people, say if we need them to work longer, like we'd say, this is the pitch and it's going to take some extra hours, and here's what it will mean to the company, here's what it will mean to you, because we understand that interrupts your family life. These days, that's not even consideration. You got Slack in your life. You got fucking Slack. You're 24/7 tied into the community of the company. It's almost expected now that you just are always working. That's fucked up. If you're doing that anyway, excuse me. If you're doing that anyway, you might as well work for yourself.
Yeah.
Now, that's easy for me to say because I've done it for a long time, and there's ups and downs. It definitely keeps your blood pumping and your adrenaline flowing because sometimes you're hustling. But the advice I have is, whatever it is, if you can find out what you really love doing, and it's like my stepdaughter, she went to UT Film School, graduated, everything, and then went, fuck, I really don't like doing this. She loves food, and she's now working, as a sous chef in a restaurant in Maine, and she loves it. So find out what you love doing. If it's a podcast, it's great. If it's, whatever it is, and then find someone to pay you to do that thing that you love doing. That's the core. That's really it. It's like I just started the show with Dvorak. We really love doing it. I really love doing it, but I have to keep my job and my company and all this because I need to eat. I need to pay insurance, and at a certain point, you just persevere, and then you cross that magic line where the income is enough to move you over. But sometimes you just need to just jump in and do it and get going. So it's not just about, if it's a media property, this is the way to go. There's no way about it. No two ways about it. It's the only way to go. And you can be generating revenue for your efforts immediately with value for value. You don't have to wait for 10,000 downloads before you can do an ad. You don't need to do ads. It can all be for the people, by the people. If someone is irritated about the donation segment, maybe it's because they've never been in it. And maybe that's because they never supported it. And you got to ask yourself, if we're asking for this episode, is it worth anything to you? Please hit the boost button. Please, what's your URL? Meat Mafia?
Yeah, meatmafia.com. So actually, we're only on Substack right now. So
meatmafia.substack?
Yeah.
Substack. Okay. Subscribe. It's, what is it, $50 a year or whatever it is if they subscribe?
Yes.
Yeah, subscribe. Show some love that way. It doesn't matter if it's a subscription instead of a boostergram. People, you can do that right now. You're already on Substack. You know how to do it. It's really a simple process, and it's very painless, and it'll help. That's all. You don't have to have meetings with anybody, and just keep that message consistent, and then ask people to go out and find more people to listen. If they like it, they'll do it. If you really like the small butcher shop, but you never go in it, you're gonna go by it one day. It'll be out of business.
Yes.
It'll be closed. You have to go in from time to time.
Yeah,
you really do.
Yeah, I wonder why we get so uncomfortable asking for things. I don't know if it's just programmed into us by society or what.
It's unnatural.
Yeah, it is. But it's so amazing when certainly coming from mainstream, man. My money was it was a lot, and you just get hired, and you just do your thing, and you do whatever they tell you, and you don't bump into the furniture. You know your lines, and you do your thing, and of course you put your own artistic spin in whatever you can do. And I never had to really think about it until, of course, you easily get fired, get the fuck out, you're done. It's like, what? I got no money. Oh well, find something else to do. There's lots of show business. That process. Not having that, it's so freeing to live and die by the same sword every single day. You get to a point where you're comfortable enough, your expenses are at a certain level, your income fluctuates, but you kind of know what it is, and you're continuously delivering consistently, delivering the value back. You break that chain, you break it.
Yeah.
It's harder. You can get it back. If you stop doing episodes, there's all kinds of stuff that breaks that chain. You keep that going, you'll be successful.
Do you find that you're someone that's always just been able to stay calm in the face of the storm with these different fluctuations?
No. I decided not to care about things the way I used to. One day in New Jersey, my daughter was maybe 1. I had a mortgage payment, just barely had the mortgage payment in my bank. MTV wasn't a great, it was cable. We didn't know what the fuck cable was. You could advertise on cable back in the day. It was a lost leader. So I wasn't making a lot of money at MTV, but it was good. And then they just fired me for the 7th time. But this time it was real. I'm like, oh shit. And I was freaking out for a week and didn't really want to tell my wife. And it was just like, oh, what the fuck am I going to do? And of course I started to invent things and come up with ideas and plans. But then after that week, they called back and said, well, they couldn't find anyone to do it like you did it. So they'll take you back and you can kind of name your price for whatever you want per episode. So they're kind of desperate. And it was at that moment I said, I wasted a whole week mostly on worrying and freaking out and feeling bad and feeling down, and it didn't change any of the outcome. Didn't change any of it. The outcome was going to come no matter what it was, and I could have been much more productive. I could have been doing other things. And from that moment on, I decided I'm just never going to worry like that again. Even health issues. And because of this, I can be very level-headed. And it's like, okay, so here's our options. There's all the different things we can do for this particular problem. And I'm very pragmatic. And in fact, I'm sometimes accused of being a little bit too pragmatic. And of course, I'm also the kind of person when it's uncomfortable, he makes jokes. So I make inappropriate jokes. But at least I'm not freaking out about something. Yeah. Freaking out about something you just can't. And every show day, and Tina will talk, what are you talking about? And then we'll talk about donations. And we say, oh, thank you, Gitmo Nation. Thank you so much. It's so appreciated. It's just, I pray for No Agenda Nation every day for all these people. They are the foundation of a lot of what I'm able to do. So, and I think they know it. And the work shows it. I think you get really happy people who are supported by people.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of you just get happier people. There's the agenda is the agenda, and we all know what the agenda is. Even if it's no agenda, there's no agenda is the agenda. We all get it. That's the agenda, and it's not the agenda of Nike or any corporation or of Comcast or anything like that. And yeah, then you free up your mind, you free up your soul, you're open to all kinds of things. The value for value, Slim, I totally stole that from him. It's a new international lifestyle, which it is, and it doesn't mean that I determine how much I'm going to pay Cole for his beef. It means I understand his proof of work.
Yes.
I understand what he put, and he understands what I had to do to get my proof of work. That's what that is, and that's the exchange.
Yeah,
that's the understanding.
Yeah,
that's so much. Is this because the dog is on my wire?
I think it might be the wire next to the. It's like caught up in here.
What?
It's,
oh!
Yeah.
Here. Okay, I got you. Oh. It also looks dumb. You called me out on that, man.
It was hanging. We just let it hang there, like you had something on your face,
like an ABBA headset. To one of those things, like you look like a douche.
You said something really cool there about happiness and just the happiness of the people who are part of the No Agenda community. Mm-hmm. It's like they actually feel like they're a part of it, which is probably,
they are.
A massive reason why they're excited to be bought in some capacity.
They are. I mean, this is what's so great and it's how we conduct ourselves and how we talk about individuals on the show who do something interesting, and that's a lot of what the value segment is about. You get the value, you read a note, people respond to that. At a certain point, you remember when the stimmy checks were coming out, and they couldn't find any COBOL programmers to run all the mainframes, and so all of a sudden it's like women were saying, "Hey, my husband does this crap, let's find out." And so we had a job market for these 65-year-old COBOL programmers.
My husband does this crap.
Yeah, he does this crap. He could do this. Hey, how do I get him a good contract? And the husband's like, yeah, this is good. I'm semi-retired. I can still get some good coin for this. Yeah. And, I set up a Mastodon server, noagendasocial.com, really early on, like, this would be fun. And it just got out of control. I mean, this thing is to manage the amount of data and everything, and it's not what I do. Boom, there's our guy, Aaroner, real name Matt. He picks it up. He puts the infrastructure in place. He's maintaining that. All of these things create, so people say, hey man, we want to support you, want to pay you money for running the server. And he's like, no, this is what I'm doing for the value for the community. You can help me in other ways when I need it. This is why I love telling leftists, all this shit is for you, man. The way we're building these communities, and Bitcoin, that's so much more in your wheelhouse than you realize.
Oh my gosh.
Not socialism, but the social aspect of people who use it and communicate with Bitcoin is close to what you might consider utopia.
100%.
It really is, except it's coming from a different place, not a forced regulatory way of doing it, but
Bottom up instead of top down.
and then people who are assholes will be seen as assholes and will be avoided. It's like, well, whatever, and everybody can go off and do their own thing, but the social aspect is strong. It's real strong this way.
Yeah.
It's just a very pure transaction.
Yeah. No matter what the transaction is, it's that it comes back to valuing something, understanding value, not just thinking, well, the value of this item, this product, this service is what I can afford in an additional monthly payment. It's like, this is something and this is another thing I like about Bitcoin. It's like, I am transferring the actual value. I'm not borrowing this until I have to pay it off. It's like, I have it now, I'm going to give it to somebody else. I can't make that magically appear if I don't have it. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
Do you view yourself in this leadership position of kind of showing people the light on this way of transacting?
No. I don't see myself in any leadership position. I see myself as part of an important machine, which is comprised of all these pieces. But I'm really a part of it, and I love that. I love being a part of it, and I have my part to play, and I'm not sure what it is from day to day, but I know what to focus on.
Yeah.
And I just love, it's a privilege to be able to be a part of that. When my dad was 58, he wasn't a part of anything cool like that. No way. No.
And it's a big mission too.
Well, there's so much left to learn and to do. That's what's so exciting about it. Life is not over. I don't have to retire. Not that I was really planning on it.
Yeah.
But there's so much to do and so much to watch, and I don't have to be that guy going, these fucking kids, because the kids are doing something. They're doing 100%. Something cool, And so it's fun that guys like me and Slim and Dvorak too. He's older than all of us put together, but he's got good knowledge.
Yeah.
And he'll slip that shit in. It's like, wow, okay, that's good to know, good to think about, or good experience.
Yeah.
So that's how, I just see it as a part of the system. I'm delighted. I love it. I get you guys hanging out.
Oh yeah.
I get to meet when would I ever meet like a busted up rodeo guy who has, an incredible marketing branding experience and is healthier than most men his age that I know. He just has a lot of metal in his neck and body, but okay. We all have our scars from from past history, but working with people like that is great.
It's amazing.
It really is.
Yeah, you just seem like you give off this vibe that you're a lifelong learner. Like even what you were saying before about, you were mentioning that there were all these younger men somewhere between 27 to 37 that have had a really positive impact on you, and you were noticing these traits that they had in common, and you were willing to want to learn from them and dig in and get in touch with your Christian roots. Like a lot of people at your level with your success would have just been like, fuck it, I don't need to learn from these kids. What do they know? I have 30 more years of experience than them, which is so contrary to I feel like how you live your life, where you're like, no, I want to get as much value from people as I possibly can and become a better version of myself, right?
Yeah, well, people who don't grasp those opportunities, they're just selling themselves short. That's it. I mean, and also, we're living longer. Our brains are functioning longer. And I think now with my improved diet, my brains will function much longer even than originally expected. So, your generation is reshaping, you're reshaping the world, your lives, you're making it, certainly in the United States, which is unique. We have some unique advantages over the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
Our federalization I would say, is the top one. And our First and Second Amendments, all the Bill of Rights, of course, the Constitution, the general concept, and as I've been more a part of what's going on over the past 3 years, Bitcoin to me is the silent revolution. It's it's creeping up, and all of a sudden it's here, and we still have a ways to go. Possibly, you don't know what the accelerants can be, but there's your change.
Absolutely,
there is your change, and we've never been in this situation before, ever. We've never had the situation where there is a global reserve currency in the wings, waiting, already being used in certain scenarios, and being embraced by the people, being attacked and confused with all kinds of other pseudo products, which has made it such an incredible challenge to kind of show people the way of what true and hard money is. Education of ourselves, just all the things that we can learn from all these smart people. Like I mentioned, Seyfedin Amous. I mean, oh man, you read his books, like, it's just like boing.
Just hits the nail on the head.
Yeah, but all kinds of people who have different messages, and you just start to see the patterns, and it all fits together, and say, man, we've been ripped apart. Our souls have been ripped apart by media and education. All of it kind of it's not different. It's the same owners often, all just kind of doing their thing for their mission. And that's why I mentioned the documentary that I was watching about the student loans. It's really egregious. Do you guys still have loans you're paying on?
Not
Luckily, no.
Fortunately. Thankfully.
I mean, that's just crazy what's happened there. And it's
insane.
It's bred this whole compliance system, just now realizing, no wonder teachers are acting the way they are. They're told to, and if they don't, you're out of education, and forget your pension, forget your prospects. They're trapped. You can't pay off your debt. They're trapped.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad.
Yeah.
We need like a class action lawsuit against the universities, the Department of Education. Sally Mae, go sue that thing. We need to reset. We really need to reset that entire thing to break the chains of slavery. It would probably be the most destructive thing, inflationary, whatever it is. But we can't have our young generation enslaved like this. This is just not. It's not going to work. It's not going to work because it's not just. It's grandma who co-signed for the loan. She's getting the car repoed in the house. This is bad. So we can't have that. That has to stop. And immediately.
It's all kind of a product of the system that you're talking about with
money,
broken money.
Broken money.
Yeah,
I know. This is the irritating thing. It always comes back to Bitcoin. I'm like, crap. It comes back to how Bitcoin fixes this.
Yeah,
doesn't right away, but the idea, it's the tool there to make it work.
Yeah, it'll take. That's the class action lawsuit right there. Buying some Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right.
I have an observation to make.
All right.
You have gotten a glimpse into probably two of the most influential people of our time's lives in Joe Rogan and Steve Jobs. How has that experience?
There's more.
I'm sure there's got to be plenty more. How has that experience of getting to see how they think, operate, influence their own lives and people in their lives shaped the way that you think?
Well, first of all, so Quincy Jones I'd put in there. I put a number of, if I really thought about it, and there's a good book. First of all, it's really cool because I have good stories. Yeah. So that just helps me in life. Like anyone I meet, they're like, oh yeah, and I can tell you about the Queen of England. I met her. She invited me to the palace, which is true.
Yes.
And so this kind of stuff. So I have great stories. So it gets me in the door. I'm great at cocktail parties. I'm a good house guest. You could have fun having me around. For pretty much all the people that you mentioned, or the ones I can think of, I would not want to be them. It's the first thing that comes to mind. Man, I'm glad I'm not Joe. I'm glad I'm not Steve. I'm glad I'm not Q. But they have. Because I can see what that brings with it, but that's for them. That's normal for me to have the meat mafia come by. That's my version. Some people might find that weird, or like, man, you got to have all these people and doing this stuff and whatever. Emails of people all over the world, but always like, wow, look at what. Oh, careful, babe. Oh, okay. Well, I got her here. No problem. That's the doke. it humanizes these people. Joe Rogan is exactly what you see on the screen. Joe is Joe. There's no difference. He is a very, very, very gracious, very intelligent, very patient, very soft-spoken man. And I think you don't want to be on his bad side. That side I've never seen. But I know that you know, Joe is easy to be friends with, easy to be acquainted with, and I love that. He is what you see. Quincy Jones, underrated genius and gangster. Major. The guy was I think Q was a real gangster to some degree. Yeah. But okay, music business.
Yeah,
music business. Jobs. It was interesting to see a man that you've seen so many times, and to see a human being. He was very personable. He had a lisp, which I'd never detected before. Did
people know that?
I didn't. I've watched lots of iPhone presentations. I had a slight lisp. Very, very tense and angry about things. At that point, we didn't know if he was sick or at all. But I do remember thinking, dude, you should calm down because I can get sick. He was just pissed about stuff, but passionately pissed about. So the iPhone, the way I understand it, and this is kind of where my life intersected with Steve Jobs, was never intended to really be on the cell phone network. It was more intended to be like the iPod Touch. It would be a phone that would communicate through Wi-Fi. And Steve Jobs wanted to circumvent that bullshit of the phone companies. And so the Wi-Fi standard had just changed, and so, I'm not quite sure what it was, but he was like, they fucked up Wi-Fi. Now we have to deal with those assholes. And if you remember, when the iPhone came out, you could only get it through AT&T initially. So he had to find, because he hated the way the cell phone companies deal with purchasing, leasing, renting. You know, there's chargebacks. It's like having Microsoft in your life, and that of course is not what Steve Jobs would want. But also when he was so passionate about. So Eddie Q was the beginning of this meeting. He now runs all of the Apple TV Plus and iTunes and all the media stuff. Probably even more than that. And he said, "Oh yeah, you know." No, Steve said, so how do you record on your Mac? I said, well, I do it now with this thing called Audio Hijack Pro because I can build this chain with a compressor limiter and stuff. He's like, oh. And Eddie says, yeah, the RIAA called about that. They want us to block the ability to hijack sound that's playing on the computer, so not through the speaker or out, but the actual digital sound. So, you know, so this is the Recording Industry Association because they don't want bootlegging. And Steve hears that, he looks at me and says, do you need this to record your podcast? I said, yeah, right now it's pretty critical. He says, tell the RIA to go fuck himself. I'm like, Steve Jobs on my side.
And that's literally what he said.
I get goosebumps when I think about it. What? And then he told me another story. So we were experimenting, and I didn't have a web host, but I had this thing called, was it called Apple Drive? It wasn't the Mac Drive. It was predecessor to iCloud, ultimately. It was Mac Cloud or something. And you could drop a file in there in a folder, and then you could access it through a web browser. So that was where I was putting my RSS feed and my MP3 files. Of course, that was just meant for, 10 megabytes at the time of data, not to, have 150 or 200 people downloading an MP3 from that. So the bandwidth was, and this was expensive bandwidth, the bandwidth was going out of control. I didn't know that. But what Steve told me is that they noticed this inside Apple. They said, something's going on. This, like all this bandwidth is being transferred. They saw that it was me. And apparently Steve said, just give him whatever he needs. Let's see what they're going to do with it.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
So now, if you know anything about Steve Jobs, and I only know a little bit, when he wanted something from you, you were the golden girl, you were the beauty queen. So I got that end of it. I never saw any of the other stuff, which I'm sure there was a yin to that yang. But it was nice to be courted by Steve Jobs. He said, is it okay if we put this in iTunes? Yeah. Yes. What?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Well, he just wanted me to buy in, and I did, and I made a mistake there. I said, oh yeah, I'll give you the directory. So I basically set them on the course to become the on-ramp to podcasting, which I now undid. but that to get it going was I think was the right thing.
Yeah.
Did you get any insight into him, like one-on-one at dinner or outside of the office? Maybe where his guard is down always.
It was just an hour-long meeting in a convention center in a private room, just chatting. He did send me an email after that, connecting me to Kleiner Perkins and Sequoia Capital, which ultimately I raised money from to start Pod Show, the podcast network, which is where I learned that doesn't work. So that was kind of him returning the favor, like, okay, I'm gonna hook you up with these money guys, and that was it. And I emailed him back and thanked him, and that was the last we ever discussed.
Got it.
Yeah.
So with both of those guys, you learned tremendous things from, but like you said, would never trade places with them. And
well, no, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Also, there's a lot of things that don't matter anymore. Now that I've figured out how money works, and as long as you stay focused, work hard, put in the time, that the money takes care of itself, as long as you can pay attention to how you live. I've had twin turbine helicopters, I've had private jets, I've had a castle, I've had houses all over the world, and I spent all the money, most of it, spent it all, had a great time, and now it really doesn't matter. There's a few things I might have on the bucket list, but even it doesn't matter. This is living, man. This is good. This is what it's. We can still. I mean, right now, I like to travel a lot, but that's just become such a pain. I'm reigniting my own flying career to fly ourselves to certain places. I can't deal with the Gestapo system of airports.
Oh my gosh!
No,
it's gotten crazy.
It's busted. It's busted.
Brett and I were laughing when we were prepping for the podcast. We're like, man, Adam's like Anthony Bourdain kind of. He's got this like worldly
a lot of people confuse me with, they'll say, you look like Anthony Bourdain.
You guys do resemble each other.
I get that, yeah. There's one bartender here in town who kept saying that. He didn't know who I was, which is cool, but he kept saying, hey, Anthony Bourdain. And then finally someone clued him in. He went, oh, wait a minute. I've been fortunate.
A, B, and AC. Maybe there's something.
I've been real fortunate. I've been fortunate that I've done so much television work that other people paid for. I've done documentaries around the world. I've traveled around the world. I've seen cool shit, interviewed amazingly cool people, and not just like with a list of questions, but just sat down and have a little conversation. I learned how to do that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And that's been fantastic. And I hope to do a lot more of this.
Yeah.
A lot more.
Yeah. It's
and
cool.
learn more, So the insurance game is next for me. I'm very interested in the crowd health guys and how that works, and because this is another scam. It's just another piece of the puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
The homeschooling. That homeschooling networks have been great in the United States for decades. That's figuring itself out, and the stigma is removed. So now all these things are starting to pop up. So we're cobbling stuff together, and then eventually we'll figure out how to elect politicians that actually represent us at a local level, do some good for us, and maybe we'll get back to where we could be. But right now, I mean, everything's captured. Everything's captured.
Yeah.
Just everywhere it looks like capture.
Yeah. We've got to blow the lifeboats up and all kind of
connect the rafts. You got to strap them together.
Yeah.
That's the trick. Is we need gaffer tape, we need ropes, we need whatever we can find. Glue. To stick everything together so we can kind of float our way in. And then the right representatives will step up. We'll find the people who truly want to represent, and we'll fund them differently. Campaign finance will change because it will be with Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
And you truly will be able to have voting power, but it will be transparent. Everybody can see what's going on, where the agendas are. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And I intend to be around for all the good stuff.
It's going to be cool.
I really do. And I know you guys see it too. You have to.
Yeah.
You
see it. And there's enough. There's enough. We can't just rely on Tucker Carlson to be the only one telling the world. But we have enough of our own media, our own landscape. Don't worry about being the biggest. Worry about activating your own tribe, your own community, so you find out who you are as a group, what makes you as the individual pieces, and then you already see it happening. That fits into all these different little tribes, and we create bigger tribes and powwows. And I'm running out of American Indian analogies here. We go get some scalps and shit. Are you gonna be at the Killing Grill?
No.
Oh man.
No.
When is that?
It's the end of the month.
It's November 5th, I think.
Oh shoot, I'm not. You could make it.
Yeah, I actually think I could go to that. That's going to be a Cole's processing plant, hometown.
Yeah,
is that what it's called?
In
Hometown meats?
Luling. Yeah.
Slim must have came up with the branding for that. That's gold.
So I took Tina to get our latest shipment from Cole, and I'd been to the ranch in Austin. And so I said, "You got to come. You got to see the cows." And she wasn't in the headspace previously. Now, because again, the psyop. Oh, we're gonna kill that cow. We're gonna eat it. So she's way over that. Heritage woman all the way.
Oh yeah.
And so we go there, but then we talk about you've been to Cole's place.
Yeah.
So
in Austin.
Yeah. Yeah. So we come back and we're talking about on curry in the keeper pot, and she says, "To be honest with you, I kind of envision like." We're going to K&C Cattle. I envisioned a gate with a K and a C and like Bobby Ewing on a horse and shit.
Yeah.
Like Dallas. Da, 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 da. And she said that was really different when it was just this little shack and like, so, it blew her mind. But then it started to come together like, oh, okay. That's the commodity cowboy stuff. This is the real deal.
This is
how it's really done. And just for Cole to honk his horn, all the cows come out of the trees, come, hey, all happy looking and shit. And like, it's just good. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, it goes back to that intentionality and it's just a totally different buying experience when you buy your meat from someone like him. Like he can tell you everything about the lineage of the cattle, what they feed it, what they finish it with, which ones have been touched with antibiotics versus not if they've gotten sick.
Yep.
The name of the processor. It's just so different. We're just so devoid of that connection when you go buy something neatly wrapped in a plastic wrapper at the grocery store. It's just very different.
So that carries over. So Tina was looking, and she's pretty big on. She's good on how to do Instagram, and so she's created her own community of I think 13 women, 2 men. Who are doing the 75 hard program with them, so they all support each other.
It's so cool.
And so she gets all kinds of people. And she saw this pair of earrings. It was handmade, really nice. And she said, "Oh man, $150." And I said, "Let's stop and think for a second. Let's think about value here." Said, "We've certainly bought Kendra Scott earrings, which are snapped together in China for $150 for you in the past. This is someone who handmade this." And she said, "No, you're right. This is real value." And now she has such a great connection with that young woman who says, "I'm just getting started, and this was such a boost for me.
My gosh.
Someone valued this." Right? These things.
Incredible.
And we have the tools. We just got to move it off of Instagram and move it off of Visa card. But we'll get there. We'll get to those pieces.
And it makes Tina feel great too, right? It's like you're doing this unselfish thing, but then selfishly it charges you with this different type of energy too.
Absolutely.
It's like that abundance mentality, right?
Absolutely.
Giving always feels better than taking.
So now the hard thing is for you guys, you're going to have to fix these fucking Zoomers. I'm not doing that shit.
Yeah.
You guys, that's up to you, man.
You fought enough battles. You fought enough battles.
That might be a tough one.
I don't think I have it in me for that. And, but they're out there. There are good ones out there.
Definitely.
Look, when we're fueled off of beef liver and some raw milk, we can get moving.
We'll fix the Zoomers.
We'll fight those battles for you.
We got to tie them down and feed them that force feeding. Fix their brains. Yeah, no, it's sad, man. It's we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah,
we will.
That's problems for another day, though.
Yeah, that's a little too far from my vision right now. It's like, holy crap, those guys. I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, maybe Bitcoin can't fix that one.
Oh wow, that would be the first thing. But yeah, we'll give it the old college try.
Yeah. Well, Adam, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Of course, man. It's
sharing the conversation and just lending your time to us. It was great.
So you're coming to live in Texas? This is really happening?
So Harry's been here for a year, and then I just moved from San Diego, so we can.
So you're already permanently here?
I'm already permanently here, and then Brett's moving here, so we're going to be the Meat Mafia will be Austin based.
Nice.
So
nice. And is this your full-time job that you're doing?
Yeah.
You're doing it now, yeah?
Yeah, we've got a few different oars in the water in terms of how, we're supporting ourselves, but the podcast is so core to that.
By the way, I have nothing against advertising in general. And I think I personally enjoy listening to podcasts that have an advertiser in it that is really relevant to me. So Bitcoin podcasts often have good products that I
Yeah.
wouldn't be exposed to otherwise. So it's not it's not a binary choice. But when you're getting into advertising, there is censorship by definition somewhere, if only not mentioning a competing product.
Yeah.
That is, and so what John and I have found as we became sustainable is we love when people send us products that we might be interested. If something we don't interested in, we won't use it, whatever. But we love it when we get something and we can say, this is an outstanding product. And I can say that without any commercial interest in it. And if you want to buy it, that's your thing. But I loved it, and here's why. As content, not as monetization.
Yes.
That's beautiful. That has its own rewards, not enough to pay your rent with, but it has, like, I know a couple things. I know I won't go hungry in this world. No matter what happens, I know people are going to feed me. So that's a nice backstop to have, but it's not going to help you with monetary stuff you need right away unless you do advertising. But even then, I just want to make it clear, I'm not anti-advertising. You need marketing and advertising in the world. Let's just be honest about what comes with it.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's helpful for us to know too, because that's something we think a lot about. We both quit our corporate jobs to focus on this full time.
Yeah, what were you doing? What job?
I was in technology sales. I was selling Microsoft technology, and Harry was in commercial real estate.
Oh, right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And just because we believe in this thing so much, and from the day that we started getting on Twitter and started recording episodes and meeting with farmers, we knew that this is our life's work. And for us to really give this the best effort, we couldn't be tied down to these corporate jobs. So your perspective on value for value versus advertising is helpful for us, because we have taken on a few sponsors like Crowd Health, who are companies that we truly believe in.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's like walking that line of wanting to keep this thing as authentic as possible, be able to pay rent, and give our listeners the best experience.
As long as you're transparent about what you just said is enough. Yeah. As long as people know that, hey, I'm working with Crowd Health, they're paying me because XYZ, but I also believe in it.
Definitely.
And if you don't, I presume that you would say, hey, I can't believe in this and I have to find another product. That's all the people are looking for.
100%.
Yes, they just want intentionality and genuosity.
Genuosity.
I just made up a new word.
You got to make shirts.
Genuosity. But I think that's what people, authenticity is really, I think is the proper word. People want authenticity, just want to know that you're for real, and they'll support you. And don't forget to ask. If you ask, that's the biggest mistake. Just ask.
Yeah.
There you go.
And if it's a problem, you call me up, I'll ask for you. Say, please support these fine young men. Right now, subscribe to the Substack. Send them a boostergram. We're going to teach them how to do that. Send them some good coin. Keep them going.
I love that.
Because I'm sure you guys are not cash flow positive yet.
It's
you're getting there.
Close.
Get there.
We have to do it.
Nice.
We're having to do some other things, but
Nice.
with the podcast,
We're hustling.
You're hustling.
But it's so fun, though. That's
Yeah.
the thing, is it's fun.
And you're your own boss, kind of. You
Yes.
have to say, oh, maybe not. We'll do it on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah, that's nice.
It's like what you were talking about, the whole situation with MTV and having that week to think through things and not really wanting to be beholden to anyone else. That's the whole process that we've gone through now. So it's
you're to be applauded because it's a scary big step you made. So congratulations on doing that, because it's scary. It's like you're literally throwing away the gold watch at the end of the trip, which doesn't exist anymore, but that was still a promise.
Yes.
Like you're throwing on. No, you're not. You're going to live your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with Bitcoin, you're going to make good saving choices, which I believe will be superior to the traditional 401k of a corporation.
Oh, without question. And I mean, I think for us, we're both mission-oriented people, and just getting in on like an adventure and getting excited about something.
Good.
I'm like, this is way better than anything I could be doing.
Now you're all single?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good place to be.
Yeah.
Good place to be.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're going to find
except for him.
yeah.
But he's a hot young stud.
Yeah. He's got taken up.
Yeah.
He's still figuring out.
He's behind the camera.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's going around town like, I produce Meat Mafia.
Meat Mafia.
It's like, if only I could find an unknown to come on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're onto your game, son.
We know what you're up to.
No, seriously, I'm very happy for your success. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And anything we can do at any time. And of course, if you're ever traveling through Fred,
We want to grill some steaks with you, man.
Yeah,
That's it.
let's do it.
Oh, we got to do that. We have to.
The lather and gather.
The lather and
Charles.
gather. You also have to go out to Rome Ranch too.
Where's Rome Ranch?
It's in Fredericksburg.
Oh,
it's
man.
it's outside. It's not far. It's like 20 miles from here.
Yeah.
I think it's close. No, it's closer.
It's closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 10 minutes away, I think.
Really?
It's a bison ranch. The husband and wife built Epic Bars, Epic Provisions.
That's them.
They sold it to General Mills, and then they took that money and bought this ranch. And they do all these events right on the property. So they do these bison harvests where they'll put the bison down, they
shit.
butcher it, they send you home with a bunch of the meat, and it's such a connected experience.
Oh, that sounds like
Oh,
perfect.
we'll send you the.
Yeah, please.
They're
There's
doing
one
an
in
event.
December.
December, a bison harvest, like December 10th. So we'll
yeah,
send that
please.
to you.
No,
and,
because I've been looking to hook up. I mean, I've hooked up with a couple people here so far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had no ranchers in the hood. So yeah,
They're
Rome
awesome.
Ranch, nice.
They're awesome. Yeah,
Very
you guys
cool.
would
yeah,
fit right in.
definitely, definitely.
Sweet.
Even though on the way out here, we passed like an ostrich farm with bison or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what that was
Well,
about.
there's a lot of marketing on Route 290. Like, come drink our wine. It's from California, but look, we have a grape.
Yeah, right.
It looks the AJ Foyt winery. I mean, come on. I mean,
Yeah.
it's basically they got a helmet, they got half a car, they got a picture of him winning, and then some wine from California.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's the kind of thing. The Rome Ranch would be the kind of thing you want to have people come to Fredericksburg for.
Yes.
You know, and then
Absolutely.
go there either at certain times or whatever, get a little tour, take home some bison.
Yeah.
You know, or don't worry, we'll have it ready for you on Main Street Sunday evening when you drive back to Austin, wherever you're coming from. You drive by the window, you scan your code, get your bison, get your KNC cattle, get your whatever. You know, you can't do raw milk because you can't transport that way. But you know, whatever we can do, we can do. That's a dream. And I think that's where we're going to change it in some of these outer communities. Have the cities come out, explore, learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So anyway,
Well, we appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for doing
luck
this,
to you,
Adam.
gentlemen. Yeah,
Thanks.
my pleasure. My pleasure.
Thanks, Adam.